All right, welcome back to another very special episode of Dr. J Radio Live. Of course, I'm your host, Dr. J, broadcasting from the City of Demons. That's right, you heard me correctly. No longer the City of Angels. La La Land, Hollyweird, all sorts of things. And I'm still waiting for any of you guys and gals out there to give me some new names to describe in one or two words what California, specifically, not California, but LA, Southern California, not even San Diego, but Los Angeles. Now, today we have a very special guest. This has actually been weeks and weeks and weeks in the making. It was supposed to happen 2 weeks ago from today, and then last week it had to be changed again till today. But here we finally are. We are talking to someone very important. He is leading one of the probably the most important, I don't want to say idea, but program essentially, or tools of how people can talk to ETs. Remember, I always say this. We're not going to I can't book a gray tomorrow and say, hey, I need you for 2 hours. I'm going to grill you on questions. It's not going to happen. The only thing we're going to get is from people who have contact or people who have been taken against their will. And you'll hear all the story if you don't know exactly who I'm talking about. If you've seen social media, then you know who exactly I'm talking about. He has the website etletstalk.com, the one and only fellow Greek, Kosta Makreas. Kosta, welcome to the show.
We have an unidentified flying object.
I'm Jack Oswald, and you're listening.
This is Hudson Hamay, and you're listening to...
I'm Richard C. Hoagland,
It's
and you're
always
listening
a
to...
pleasure
I'm Art
to have
Bell,
you
and you're
on,
listening to
and
Dr.
let me fix
J
one
Radio
second.
Live.
We have an unidentified flying object.
Something that's blocking the audio, and I'm going to fix that right now. Now, let me ask you this. How did you get started in ufology and specifically contacting ETs?
Okay, that's like I like to say, everybody has a story. I have my own as well. And before I start in telling all your listeners where I came from, I want to let them know where I am now so they can understand that my narrative, my story, led up to this part of my life right now. And I later knew that I never expected. And what I mean by that is that etletstalk.com today is a community of 25,000 or more people. We're spread out in more than 100 countries on the planet. What we're doing is very basic. It's daily, weekly, and monthly contact, successful contact, I might say, with benevolent star civilization. That's what we teach in the community. So I've created it as a safe place for people to kind of come out of the ET closet. And there are many ET closets like that because I hear story after story. But it's a safe place in the community for people to finally reveal their UFO experience and tell it to other people and not be called crazy or things like that. So they find a means of sharing, of support, and an ability to become activists. So that's what etletstalk.com is about.
Here, people are saying they're having trouble hearing us. Let me just make sure. Anybody out there, I know there's a little bit delay. Let us know if you're able to hear us. I don't know why this is happening. Probably because someone doesn't like the message that's coming across. Okay, I'm waiting for anybody to write something. I called Dr. Dre. Maybe you could fix it. Hang on, dear friends. Hold on, hold on, hold on. I will absolutely fix this. Let's see here. This is the problems dealing with live shows all the time, unfortunately. And, yeah. Okay, so they could hear me. Say something. Costa.
I'm saying something.
Okay.
Hello.
Did everyone hear Costa? You can hear me, but not him. You can hear not the guest. Fixed. Okay, it's fixed. All right, that's what I wanted to see. Sounds like it's on his side. No, he's on a landline, folks. Can you hear your guest? I can hear the guest completely. Okay, I see Justin T said capital letters fixed. Someone else say, I know there's a delay. Can you hear me and Costa? It's not fixed. Hang tight, friends, and this is the only troubleshooting we have to deal with, which is a shame. I don't know why, but don't worry, we'll get across this. You know, the last time this happened was with the NSA whistleblower, Bill Binney. It begs the question of, yeah, something is not right. Hold on a second. Let's see what the hell's going on here. And I'm trying to get my tech on this. Tech support, my webmaster, to see if he can join in here to fix this as well. All right, let me play with something real quick. Let's see here, friends. Third phase is here. You can hear me, but not the guest. Son of a gun. No Costa, just Dr. J. All right, let me double check one more thing and figure out what the hell is going on. Speak for 30 seconds, just real quick.
Okay. I'm Kosta Makreas from ETLetsTalk.com. Tuning in 25,000 people in more than 100 countries. We make daily, weekly, and monthly contact with our benevolent team of star players. And more. I'll be talking more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to make sure if these people are hearing it. Okay. Third phase of moon. That's the one of the world's largest UFO YouTube channels. Blake and Brent Cousins. Okay, let me see here if I can just grab Tom and see, pull him into this conversation with us, even though we're live. To, let's see here.
Would you like to switch to mobile?
No, it wouldn't matter. It's something that drastically changed for whatever reason. Meter moving when you're on. Let me, son of a gun, let's see, what's this? How can I add this guy in? Add. Tom, oops. Hold on a second, folks. Don't worry. If worst comes to worst, I will stop the stream and we'll pick it up back in a few minutes. You know what? That's what we should do while we get Tom Schaefer on here. Yeah, it's so weird. Your audio is definitely moving. Talk about bad luck today, huh? To say the least, yeah. Tom, you with us? Let's call him again. Let's try his other number.
I have to say they used to go more than once when I was on TV in church.
Mm-hmm.
Pete Reeves got up interference, but it never worked.
Jeez. Well, someone's trying to silence things, obviously.
Well, they won't forever.
That's right. They can't forever. All right, let me try one other thing, folks, and let's see if this makes any difference. Okay, let
Hey,
me know.
brother.
Tom, dear friend, we are live, but they can't hear my guest Costa, nor you, I don't think.
Oh, you're on and you have audio issues. Okay.
Oh, wait, you hear,
Click on,
they said they hear something. Okay, Pyramid 7. Do you hear all three of us right now? That's what we want to know. Faint audio. Blame Canada.
Can you hear me? Because I'm on a phone call. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I have two. I don't know I sent you the password to get in. It shouldn't be faint. Everything's at its maximum volume. Okay, again, now it says fixed, so everybody's okay. We're good. Okay, well, Tom, if we needed a backup, then I will call you. We're only doing an hour, Tom, and if I decide I'm going to do 2 hours, I'm going to pull you in, okay? Well, this is great. Like I said, if people want to have calls at the end of the show, after he's done, and if you want to come in, Tom, we could definitely do that for at least 30 minutes, 40 minutes, considering we lost a good 10 minutes fixing this. Let's double check. Let me see the most recent posts. I hear all three. Well, guess what? We are all set. Okay, now, Tom, do you want to just hang by and mute yourself till I'm off, or how do you want to do this? Yeah, yeah, like I was telling him earlier, and the listeners that this has been not just weeks, months in the making. If you remember, Costa, before I had that debacle where I was off air for 2 years because of illness. Yeah, no, and I actually, yeah, no, I saw it, and I'm like, Costa, that's a Greek guy, and ET, let's talk, and that's where we were communicating, but that's when I unfortunately went off air. Now, since we're back on, okay, this is good, and what do you mean you can't hear the guest? Still can't hear the guest. You just said you all heard all three. Dead air, can't hear Costa. Oh, gee, folks. It's messed up again. How is this possible? Let me try one other thing. Talk about bad, bad luck. All right, let me grab Tom. Tom? Nope, he's not. Yeah, please do because they're saying they can't hear all three now. Uh, great. You hear you? I hear them for a sec. No sound. We hear Tom. They hear you. Apparently not me or Costa. And this doesn't make any sense. If you see the meters are moving. Okay. Don't worry, friends and family. We are troubleshooting this. Don't go anywhere because this is going to be a life-changing interview. A very important interview. You heard Tom's enthusiasm. And, I always say that the best way for us to get information is by talking to the people who interact with ETs. Not just see the crafts, close encounters of the first kind. We're talking about close encounters of the fourth and fifth kind. Fifth, obviously, is human initiated contact. All right, let me see here what I got. Any comments? Still no sound. Maybe have him call again. No, I called him. They hear me and Tom. I don't understand. Hearing one guest faintly. Okay, maybe if you could speak up a little bit more. Just say a sentence, Costa.
Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. This is Costa. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Can you hear me?
Now, Tom, this is coming from my microphone, not from the default. Yeah, yeah. Hang tight, friends. And you know what's sad, Costa? Is there's no way to deal with this, to fix this beforehand. Otherwise, unless I had you on or somebody on. Um, don't worry, friends and family. At least they're still rising in chat, which is good. Okay. Faint, but there. Okay, Costa is low volume, is what I'm seeing. Still no sound, very low.
I'm speaking forcefully and loud right now.
Tom, unfortunately, you have been timed out now. Can you go? You can't get back in. All right. Well, all of this is saved. Okay. People, are you able to hear Costa? Even if he's faintly, are you able to at least hear him? Costa needs to speak louder. That's what I am seeing from.
I'm speaking very loud.
I could hear you great. Yeah.
Yeah, is this sufficient?
To me it is. I just want to see what the next comment is because there's about a minute delay.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2
Can't
3.
hear Costa. Can't hear Costa. Oh, great. All right. Tom, what do you suggest to troubleshoot this because I've already done this? Audio. I'm there. Yeah, and they're all set to the Plantronics. Okay. Realtek. Default, you mean, right? No, Realtek. Realtek. Headphones, Realtek. I am. Okay, let's find out. Friends, are you hearing now? Okay, yes, I know you only hear me, but are you able to hear Costa? Costa, now we've. Yes. I'm waiting for somebody to give me some feedback. Um, let's find out, friends. I don't want to break our rhythm. I mean, we have such a great 1 hour planned, and now it's going to drag a little longer. I'm sorry about that, Costa. Nope, they still don't hear it. Wow. Someone is trying to make sure that you are not heard. This is a catastrophe. Yeah, okay. Now everybody, let me know. Do you hear him? Can you hear the guest?
Okay, I hear nothing.
Testing 1 2 3. This is Costa. Costa testing 1 2 3.
Okay, John, it's in your audio settings. It's going to be an experimentation of the desktop audio and the microphones and the sources. So there's 2 desktop audio settings. What are they set on right now?
Desktop audio. Plantronics.
Okay, set it to default.
Let's see how the hell I change it. To speakers, headphones, Realtek. Okay. Now, let's see if anybody wrote something. Have him call back in. Yes. Oh, yes, Costa.
I'm good.
They're hearing. Now there's just an echo. It might be coming from Tom. But I see,
I
yes, we
can
have
hear myself
Costa.
talking.
Third phase of moon says we have Costa. Blake and
You're
Brent.
working.
Just in party with
Yeah,
those. There we go. Okay, finally.
Okay, you're working.
We're good. We're good. All right. Tom, I'll talk to you after, especially if I decide to stick around for other questions and things like that. And so, with that being said, Tom, thank you again. All right. Now let's talk. Let's go back to the original question because they couldn't hear the
Okay.
damn answer. How did you get started in UFOs, contact, and everything involving that? The whole umbrella.
Okay. Yeah. And I was saying originally that, like most people, I have a story that led me to what I'm doing today. And in order for people to really appreciate the path that I took to get to where I am today, I want to let people know what I'm doing, these days, so that it makes a whole lot more sense. And that is that I founded etletstalk.com in 2012, and our ET Let's Talk community, it has 25,000 or more members in more than 100 countries across the planet, and we've taught people and have people actually doing ET contact. We do it daily, weekly, monthly, and on a regular basis and as often as we can, and we report to each other and share with each other what the results of our interactive contact with our star friends is. Now, the People's Disclosure Movement is something I've been championing for many years, and it's part of what ETLetsTalk.com is doing. It's the most widespread, largest interactive communication between humans and star people, and they like to be called star people, not aliens. They've told us that. But it's it's the
I'm glad you
the
actually
largest,
mentioned that,
most
because
widespread and on the planet today.
someone I just spoke to, who was a guest on the show, she's also a moderator. Her name, she uses Starseed, and you're absolutely right. That's what they prefer to be called. Some people call them space people, but more often than not, I hear star people.
Yeah, and that's fine. It's they've told us basically not to look at them or think of them as gods, but instead to think of them as elder brothers, sisters, and cousins. They use the word family, and of course we know there's probably a long history into our ancient past, but why that is likely literally very true. Family, not just a warm and fuzzy phrase, but quite an accurate phrase in our genealogy and all that. But yes, they like star family, they like star people. And so the People's Disclosure Movement is all about, like I said, the largest movement on the planet now of us, of humans making this contact. And what they told us was, when I asked, well, what's the end game for all of that? Why do we do it and make this contact with you? And they said that because governments have covered up the UFO ET presence, star people presence, for so many decades, that waiting for a government disclosure is kind of like burning a lot of energy. How many of us out there trust what governments tell us or don't tell us, right? They've manipulated the media. They tell us we haven't seen what we know we've seen in the skies and interacted with, and they basically, like I said, covered it up. So the People's Disclosure Movement really is all about we, the people, doing our own contact and making the disclosure happen ourselves. In that way, we take back our power that we had given to authorities to please tell us that it's true. Make that announcement. Forget that BS. The People's Disclosure Movement is about teaching the person next to you and having them teach the next person, and make your own contact with ET and find out for yourself. And in that way, it organically becomes a people-to-people, people-powered movement. And we've been doing that for many years now, and that's how we've grown the community, and that's why people all over the world now are trusting their neighbors and friends who tell them about contact, and then they make their own, rather than waiting on bended knee, supplicating and praying to some authority to tell them that it's true. Once you have your own contact, your life changes. You know that it's true. And what you decide to do with it after that, there's a variety of options, but at least you've had your own experience, and that's what we say in the People's Disclosure Movement. Your experience is yours. Don't let someone else talk you out of it. And don't
Or
keep
mock
sitting there
you.
waiting for someone else that it's true.
Yeah.
Or mock you or whatever. So the ET Let's Talk community and the People's Disclosure movement are a place where people can come forward and tell their stories, and they can find other supportive people to share their stories and grow our knowledge base, because all of us have a piece of the puzzle. I don't claim to know everything about why all these star civilizations are here. I have some ideas, and I have had communications that tell me why they're here. But what I want to do is to teach people to find their own power and take their little piece of the jigsaw when they've made contact, put it together with someone else's, and maybe together we can come up with a more complete picture of what's going on. And in that way, that's a real authentic movement. It comes from the grassroots up, from the people, rather than being told by authorities and programmed by authorities what we're supposed to be believing, because they've got motives that most of us don't trust. I would rather trust ourselves. And, along the way, I also tell people that they don't have to believe a word I say about anything, but what I do encourage they do is go out and make their own contact and find out the truth for themselves. That's truly taking your power back. You don't even have to listen to Costa or any other government, but do that contact yourself, take it into your own inner awareness, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, and test what I'm saying against that and what you've experienced. And if they resonate together, then that's great. I want to hear from you. Come join etletstalk.com as a free member and become part of the community where we're all doing this experimental discovery together and growing together in our knowledge. So that's it in a nutshell about concerning where I am today. We've got this community. We're on the forefront. We're the first, I won't say the first, but we're one of the larger waves right now of cosmic humanity happening. And it's all in our power and in our hands to make the contact and to grow it all over the planet. What I will say before I go backwards in time to my story of how I got here is a little bit of some research, an interesting statistic that I want your listeners to really grok here because it really gobsmacked me when I learned it. And what I'm talking about is that in 2015 and 2016, a research firm in the Netherlands did a research study, the largest of its kind, involving, I think, 24,000 participants in a lot of different countries, involving different demographics of people, different social systems, religious belief systems, economies, whatever, so that the people they were polling on the questions that they had for their research were representative of a large part of humanity. So they weren't just a small pocket of believers in some country. This research firm wanted to get a diverse group of people to answer their questions. So I won't go into all the details, but two questions that they posed in their study, and this is a serious study. You can download a PDF, and they've got the metrics there, and it's all scientific, and it's awesome. But two of the questions that they asked that were of particular interest to me in my work with the People's Disclosure Movement and the ET Let's Talk community were as follows. The first question they asked, oh, by the way, the research was focused on what global adult attitudes are towards extraterrestrials. So that's what made this unique. They were asking about life out there. So the first question that got my attention went like this. Do you believe that star civilizations exist out there? And not as microbes under a rock somewhere on some planet in some far-flung galaxy by random chance, but do you believe, full-on star civilizations exist? And a big chunk of the people, I forget the percentage, it was either 40 or 60%. I kind of flip those and get them mixed up sometimes, but it was one of those two numbers. A chunk of the people said, yes, we do believe that.
Well,
And
now they
people,
more so, because 30, 40 years ago, and we talked about this weeks ago, we were told that there were no other planets anywhere in this universe aside from our solar system. It was either dust, pulsars, stars, gases, that's
right.
it. And then we started finding exoplanets, and then we started finding Goldilocks planets. And Stanton Friedman, before he passed away, gave the estimate, I don't know where he got it from, but it's a mainstream estimate, that for every star out there in the universe, or multiverse, should I say, there exists 1.8 planets. Think about that. That's humongous. And real quick, let me just say, shout out to Justin T. Thank you so much for your super chat, and the Blue Crew. Real quick, Costa, two things I wanted to address to what you said earlier. The connection...
Well, I wanted to finish...
Yeah,
go ahead,
finish
the
that.
research because there was a conclusion to that, and I'd be happy to circle back. But what I was driving at was, and thank you for that comment, because that is true about exoplanets and all that. The revelation has just been amazing in the last 10 years. But concerning this particular study, the second question that they asked that got my attention was a follow-on question to the group of people who said, "Yeah, we believe in star civilizations." So from that group, they said, "Okay, do you believe that we should be contacting these civilizations, communicating, interacting with them?" And a certain large percentage, again, and I forget it was 40 or 60, but it was large, said yes. So those two questions basically gave us percentages, gave us an idea that of adults between 18 and 64 or 65 out there on the planet, there was a large percentage that believed in those two questions, that we should be interacting with civilizations that exist. I took the percentages that this research offered up about those two questions, did a little math concerning the entire global population of humans at the time that the research happened. And long story short, I came up with a number that was 1.3 billion, that's billion with a B, of adults globally believe that star civilizations exist and that we should be communicating with them. That is our base of support. Most of those people don't know about ET Let's Talk or the People's Disclosure Movement, but in theory, they support what we're doing. Now, 1.3 billion people is a large part of the 7.8-ish billion people that are on the planet today. That's a huge chunk. It's bigger than anybody ever thinks. And that's why this ET Star People thing is an elephant. It's the Star People elephant in the middle of the room that people are not talking about. When so many of us do know someone that believes, but we're not talking about it because, depending on the country you're in, you'll either be lauded or you'll be called crazy. But there are a lot of us. So 1.3 billion adults, if they were listening to the conversation you and I are having, Dr. J, I'm sure we would be nodding their heads going, yeah, go on, we're there, what's next? So that's cool. I think that's great news. It fires my rockets, gets my motor running in the morning when I consider that, because that's the audience that I want to reach.
First of all, I believe 1.3 billion is a vast number, like you said, all right? And I am starting to think that even more people believe that. So maybe that number was proper, say, 10 years ago when we were already more exposed. But for instance, you go to any high school or college right now, if you ask anybody if ETs exist, without a doubt, almost every hand will go up. Maybe one naysayer out of, say, 20 or 50 or something. If you ask, have we been visited? Yes, it's not as vast as do they exist, but it's far higher than it was, say, 40 years ago. Now, the only thing I wanted to address to your earlier 2 points, when you mentioned that we have to contact the ETs directly. 2 reasons. First of all, the president or prime minister of any country, and the people who are listening hear me say this a lot of times, what the hell would he do? Is he going to go on TV and say, a big announcement, waiting for a press conference, global press conference from the UN, whatever it be? Just so you know that we have been visited by non-terrestrial beings for millions, if not billions of years. There are several different species. Some of them look just like us, and they're able to come in our, airspace without us stopping them, whenever they want. And their technology is so far advanced that it does not follow our known laws of physics. And by the way, who's going to win America's Got Talent or American Idol tomorrow or tonight? What the hell could he say, right? That's why what you said, it has to be people versus people, or people versus ETs. That's the only way I think we're going to get somewhere.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that became obvious to me. And I received instruction, actually, quite literally from my star friends, when they said a number of years ago they requested that I and others, but they were talking to me in the moment to do what I could do, to ask me to do what I could do, and they said, would you form as many ET contact teams as possible, in as many places as possible, as quickly as possible, And I said, yeah, I'll make the effort. It's a numbers game. It's just grow them quickly. And I asked, why are you asking me to do that in this way? And they said, well, the more that people see us and want to see us, that gives us permission, human permission, to appear in many more places, in many more cities around the planet. And as more people form these teams and make the contact, more people will see us. And as more people see us, then more people will ask us to see even more. And that will give us further permission to appear in many more places, where more people will see us and give us permission to appear in even more places. And they said, someday a tipping point will be reached where so many people around the planet have interacted with us in one form or another in a positive way, that no government or any institution of authority will ever again be able to do a cover-up, because moving forward from that tipping point, people simply won't believe any government or other institutional authority, because we'll have had a people's disclosure and we'll believe ourselves. And actually what I'm told is that from my star friends is that early in 2019, this year, that tipping point was reached. They said that from this point on, a cover-up is impossible. Now, that doesn't mean that things from the last 50 or 60 or 70 years are all suddenly going to be revealed. No, that's not the disclosure we're talking about. You know, that stuff may be leaked. It may never be completely, fully exposed. That doesn't matter, because moving forward now, the people's disclosure has succeeded, and that anything that happens from this point on, from early in 2019 on, when the tipping point was reached, means that the global population is going to accept ourselves as the authorities and not believe someone else. This is a huge change in consciousness and in taking our power back. And I want to congratulate everyone out there who's been part of this, all of our teams across the planet, because we've achieved the people's disclosure, and it's only going to keep getting bigger. But it has happened, and my Star People friends are overjoyed at this. So I wanted to put that out there, and this is, I think, probably the first platform where I'm making that announcement.
You know, and I'm glad, and you know, this is what a better way, because all the people listening, you know, these are some of the nicest people. They absolutely, all my moderators, everybody in the chat, are beyond the point of, do they exist? Have we been visited? We're always looking for the bigger questions and things like that. And they are too. And that's why everything, I think, fits so perfectly. And bringing you on, I think, you know, was just destined. And like I said, I wanted to have you on, you know, a couple years ago when I found out about you. I think it was even, I know you said 2017. It might have been even end of 2016, because, you know, January
Yeah.
2017, I was pretty much gone at that point. The point I wanted to get across to you is, do you believe that everybody has this capability of contacting them?
Yes, I do, and I'll tell you why. And it's a powerful reason, because it makes every one of us somebody who's special. I mean, everyday people can learn the technique, and that's what we teach on our website at etletstalk.com. And there are instructions there, you know, protocol, and any person can do it, because if you have at the core, and this is what's important for the contact. At the core, if your vibration, if what you're putting out is love in your heart, and if it's open-mindedness, and if it's an invitation, then you already have put yourself in a frequency where you can be detected in a positive way by these star people civilizations, because we have to understand that they've also spiritually evolved and have, in many cases, paranormal powers that we humans are heading towards and are building ourselves, so that if we meet them halfway and I know this sounds a little airy-fairy, but it's called raising our vibes, right? If we come from love and that openness at the core of our attempt to communicate with them, we're about 90% there. And additionally, what you can do, and people will customize this in many ways, but we use consciousness. We sit in either alone or in a group, and we'll meditate or just be quiet. You can have a guided word meditation, or you can just visualize being in your group and doing your own thing together. The important thing is to get in a coherence of love, whether alone or with that group. Send out that invitation, and it does get detected. Everything is one. There's only one consciousness in the universe, and your thoughts, your intention, are being detected and are being responded to. And what I tell people is that they will make contact eventually. But here's the kicker. It may not always be the lights in the sky that you want. And don't get me wrong, I love the lights in the sky. I take groups out all the time, and I still get thrilled like a fifth grader, when I see them zipping around and zigzagging and flashing back at us. Obviously, intelligent beings up there, doing this, and that still thrills me. But they're not limited to that, and I get these stories all the time from my community. They can communicate in many creative ways. People can have telepathic communication. I have that. Lots of people I know have that with them. People can experience lucid dreams. There can be weird electrical phenomena that goes around them. We've had smartphones that were turned off, literally turn on during our contact attempts, and start playing some cosmic song that was in the playlist that hadn't been played for years. Or car lights will go on, or if you're out in a really remote area and your radar detector goes off, and there should be nothing doing that, and it's pulsing in a rhythmic pattern, and it's answering your questions by beeping twice for yes and 3 times for no, or something like that. There's so many different ways that people have reported to me that they've received the communication that's obviously not by chance and not by human endeavor, but that really is anomalous, and yet it's very intelligent and connected to the contact they're trying to make. So I tell people, be aware, aside from the lights in the sky, that our ET friends, our Star People friends, are not limited to just what we think will be only one way of contact. It can come in many ways, and we should be looking for that and celebrate it.
It's kind of like vision, right? We can only see such a small scope, yet you have things outside of our vision, right? You have things that cameras can pick up. You have x-rays. There's so much that we can't see, but we know is there. So it's
Yes.
kind of like that. We can't just focus on lights in the sky, landing, coming out of the ship. Like you said, they will pop out somewhere else. Also, let me also throw out a new super chat right now. Two-Headed Tasmanian. Thank you, Two-Headed Tasmanian, for all your support as well. Now, how many people are in your group, the contact group?
Well, the community as a whole, the best estimate I have is about 25,000, but we are just one large network. I think we're the largest, and yet I know that in the years since I started teaching this, that it has spawned other networks. There's activists out there, and I invite your listeners, if they feel they are a leader, to go out and find others, start your own network, so that we have networks within networks that are out there. And it has grown so big, this contact biz, that I'm not aware of every network. I don't have the time to keep track of it. I can only speak to my community, the etletstalk.com community, and know I have 25,000 people in 100 countries. And yet I know that they also influence someone else in their lives, right, to be aware of ET and in a positive way. And some of those people, unbeknownst to any of us, will start their own explorations and start their own groups. So it's all over the planet, and that in that way I can't give a number because I don't really know, like I said, except for my own community. But I know that it's growing. And you know what? Especially with the millennial generation, you alluded to this, or not alluded, but you talked about it, Dr. J, just earlier, where if you go to a school now, a high school or a college,
Yeah,
with the
any of them.
younger millennials and those after them, those hands are going to go up. I find when I go to the gym here in my town, and usually there's younger people there, behind the counter, and we get to talking, and they find out what I do. Nobody looks at me like I'm crazy when I just up and just tell them, I teach people how to make contact with ETs. We have this community, and we're doing this and that. And they go, oh, cool. Can I do that? Can I come with you on your next outing, or what's your website? Or even better, everybody you talk to, usually in the younger crowd and some in the older crowd, if they want to open up, has a story. They either have had an encounter, or they know someone who has, or they did when they were a kid, and they haven't talked about it, especially if they're of an older generation, because it wasn't cool back then, right? So they've just stuffed it until later years when they find a community like ours where they can come out of that closet, the ET closet, and tell their story. And with the younger people, they're already open because of the things that you mentioned. You know, that exoplanets have been found. In their experience, they've seen the ET movies. Star Trek has been out. Deep Space Nine, Babylon, whatever. There's
For
just
decades.
been a lot
A
out
lot
there.
of them have been, right?
What's that?
You mentioned those movies a lot. Those go back decades.
Yeah, and they've been, even though a lot of them, some of the movies have been put out by Hollywood to be a fear-based alien kind of stuff, there are still a few good ones that have positively inspired people to open their minds and to accept the fact that there are a lot of civilizations out there and who are visiting now that are benevolent, and they care deeply about the mess that we're in as a planet because of all the different ways that we can destroy ourselves. And they're here out of concern. They have told us that, and they want us to increase our numbers and our awareness and to work with them. That's what we're being told is partnership.
I'm here.
They have technologies that can help us.
Keep going.
And here's another announcement that they told it that of something that's happened here in 2019. I mentioned earlier that early in 2019, they told us that we achieved the people's disclosure so that a cover-up is no longer possible moving forward.
Are you talking
The
about the
other thing they
DoD
said-
one? The DoD videos?
Oh,
Or-
no. That's all fear-based. That is an attempt to harvest people, to fool people into thinking that this government disclosure is happening. But if you dig down to the people who are, to the core of what the people who are leading that are talking about, they eventually get to be afraid, be very afraid. They're trying to spin this as an alien threat because they come from the DoD. Their life is about finding threats, and if you have an army and want to protect your nation, that's fine and proper. I'm not saying don't do that. But when they go to the Star People thing and they start casting all those our visitors in a negative light to make us afraid and to put us in a posture of we're being threatened. And as you know, Dr. J, whenever you get anyone into fear, you got them by the short ones. You can make them do anything. So those DoD attempts are mind control. I'll just go out and say it. And
No, I'm glad you
people's-
said it because someone needs to.
The People's Disclosure Movement is 180 degrees from that because the people leading those drip DoD conversations are basically saying they're a threat out there. Don't talk to them. Don't contact them. They're dangerous. Our People's Disclosure Movement is 180 degrees from that because we're saying, no, that's BS. They've been around for thousands of years, and especially in the recent decades, with the technologies they have, they could have wiped us off the face of the earth. Why hasn't that happened? Because they're not the threat that we're being told that they are. And in the People's Disclosure Movement, by having our own contact and telling hundreds and thousands of stories that I've heard from people in my community over and over, we know that the intention of our Star People friends is to come and help us. And it's a peaceful intention. They want to help us evolve. They want us not to destroy the planet, and they want us to become cosmic humanity and join them in the stars. So that's what we're aiming at. It's a golden age, not the other conversation that you were talking about, which is the DoD one.
Yeah, the aerospace or Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP. You're absolutely right. It is coming from that fear-based thing. And every time I hear that term or those 6 episodes from Unidentified with Tom DeLonge, Luis Lanato. It comes from that fear-based area. We are
Hmm.
military. What can we do to stop this? As opposed to, as you mentioned, there are some good films that show benevolent beings. Just some older films that just off the top of my head, not even including new films like Independence Day, which are opposite, right? They're here to kill us. One is Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The other, of course,
Right.
is E.T. They made it lovable for the ETs. They made them benevolent.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah, and I'm glad that, because those speak to the better part of people's natures, and more people will be enraptured by those storytellers and those positive images and stories that they're the people that are making contact these days, and they're influencing their children, and they're coming to our communities to learn how to make the peaceful contact. So it's had a positive effect along the way, alongside the negative effect that does affect other people.
I, Tom, Free People of the Cosmos, has a question for you. And as you heard, he's a big fan of you. And just one quick question. I brought him in live so you could ask it directly as opposed to me read it. Go ahead, Tom.
Costa, I'm so glad you're on tonight. Quick
Hi,
question for you.
Tom.
You
How are
meant
you?
doing great. Quick question. You mentioned something earlier that there was a kind of a message from the ETs that we needed to unify and kind of a one by one agree to meeting them or having them come kind of open. There was a, sorry, I've got mosquito sprayers going by. There was a message that came out about 15 years ago through this guy in France. His name was Jean Erdmann. And he conveyed that he had channeled this message from ETs that said essentially the same thing, that they were kind of waiting for humanity to kind of jointly
Hmm.
agree through kind of a mental ascension, a kind of an ET, what do you call it, an extrasensory telepathic yes.
I see. Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
familiar with that story?
I think I remember the story, and even if I don't remember the details, what you just told me about the content of it is very similar to what I'm hearing now, and that will lead into the next thing I want to talk about, because one of the recent messages we got from them was very simple. They basically said, "We are ready." They're waiting on us still. We're fighting amongst ourselves, but there are many of us on the planet who are are trying to positively come together and contact them and tell them, please do come join us. Uh, so we are trying to put into practice what that gentleman was talking about 15 years ago. And I'm sure there are other messages from other people too that have been in contact that are similar to that. But yeah, the idea is they are ready, and they've worked this out to the smallest degree, but they're waiting on us to stop fighting amongst ourselves, between ourselves, and come in a coherent way and tell them, yeah, we humans will meet you in peace. We're not going to shoot at you and this and that and the other thing, but we'd like to greet our family. It's like sending a greeting to someone that you knew was a distant cousin or whatever that you've never met, and you look at them at meeting them with enthusiasm, and getting to know them and sharing with them. So that's where we're poised right now, and that's what we're all about. And the thing that I want to announce in that regard right now, I think this is the first place I'm publicly making this announcement too, is that, well, actually there's two announcements. One is that because we have reached such a tipping point, and so many of us wanting to have peaceful contact with our star people, with our star families, because we've done that, they now have more permission from us, and this is important, permission from us humans, to intervene more fully into our affairs, but only if we ask. Up until now, they were observing the prime directive, which is, you don't interfere with another species, no matter how badly it looks like they're screwing things up. except for nuclear war. They have stopped nuclear war, we're told many times. But other than that, they haven't gone beyond that because they were allowing us to work things out ourselves, non-interference. Well, here in 2019, another tipping point was reached. I just got this message from a few weeks ago that the non-interference policy is gone now. So many of us have given permission through the activities of our global teams making contact with them for more than 9 years now, that we have given that permission. They're allowed to intervene. And when we contact them now, it's okay for us to say, hey, can you help us with the chemtrail thing? Or, hey, that radiation from Fukushima or the latest disaster, we're needing some help. We're allowed to do that, and they're allowed and willing, with our permission, to assist us in ways that maybe we can't handle because the problems might be way too big for us, but are not too big for their technology. So this is a partnership I'm talking about, and that's the second tipping point we've reached this year. Now, the third tipping point that might come this year is the announcement that I want to make about an event that we at etletstalk.com and the People's Disclosure Movement are sponsoring, which is called the Woodstock of ET Contact.
Nice.
And that's going to take place between September 20 to September 22 of this year, 2019. And I will describe it in context of something that started out as a joke, which many of your listeners, I'm sure, have heard of, which was the Storm Area 51. Let's raid Area 51 and free them aliens.
On September 20th, yeah.
Yes, and we are purposefully timing what I call the Woodstock of ET Contact with that. Now, why is that? Well, it's because our star friends have said to us, number one, they don't need freeing. They said, we humans need to free ourselves from our greed, our hate, our fighting, and whatever, and then we can meet them. They don't need freeing. So what started out as this idea, and on Facebook, I think it got up to maybe 4 million goings and likes. It showed that there's a huge awareness of it, and even though it started as a joke and there's other people kidding about it, at least it showed that there's awareness on a really large scale when you get 3-4 million people clicking than you ever thought was possible. So that's the good news. Now, storming an area and raiding that area, Area 51, I don't think so. We do not condone that. We don't condone any illegal actions. People are going to show up there if they want to play music and have fun and make contact, peaceful contact there in the desert. That's great. But we don't condone the original idea of storming anything or doing anything illegal. However, our Woodstock of ET Contact is a meditation event, and we're asking people from all over the planet to join us in meditation as often as they want during those 3 days, September 20, 21, and 22, and to initially focus their thoughts and their hearts on the Area 51 and all the people gathered there, and also to acknowledge that there will be star people in their craft in that area too. Now, whether they want to show themselves or not, that's nothing I can predict or none of my business, but they will be there. And so we're asking people to, in meditation, like I said, as often as they want during those 3 days, to bring into their awareness the star people that are there and the humans on the ground, and to offer love and peace, like the old Woodstock. And it's 50 years. We made our announcement about this event 50 years to the day when the original Woodstock on August 15th, 1969, was launched. That particular Woodstock, and I'm old enough to remember it, I was in high school, but that event defined a generation and created a consciousness of peace and love that spread throughout the planet. And now, in a similar way, 50 years later, this Woodstock of ET Contact, we're asking people to come together in their thoughts, in their minds. They don't have to travel to Area 51 at all, but to come together in their consciousness with the thought of Woodstock of ET Contact and inviting our stellar visitors to join us in a cosmic wave of love that's going to start from Area 51 and radiate out to encompass the entire planet, so that we bring love, peace, and healing to our planet and use that to define our current generation the way that the original Woodstock defined that generation, the generation I grew up in. So this is an incredible opportunity, and I'm asking people to come to register on our website, to share this on their social media. And this is all for the service of the greater whole. Nobody's making fun. Well, people are making fun of the original Area 51 thing, that's for sure, on Facebook. Nobody's making profit. We're not asking for money. We're just asking for people's hearts and minds on those 3 days to join in this unity consciousness of love and spread it throughout the planet out of genuine concern for healing our world and for acknowledging our visitors who are here and who want to walk openly among us. They've said that. But we got to show them we're ready. Let's do that for 3 days. Tell them, y'all come on down. You know, we know that the power of love will overcome the love of power. And that's what we're aiming for these 3 days. People can come to etletstalk.com/Woodstock-ET-contact. /. And there they can get all the information, and they can register and get on our email list so that we can keep them updated on certain events. We're also going to have a live event once each of those 3 days where people can tune in to that event and actually listen to the Star Teachers answer questions or give messages. These are one group of ET beings that are guiding this particular event. There are many of them, but this group that calls themselves the Star Teachers wants to speak to humanity, and they will make themselves available at least once during those 3 days of the event. So it's y'all come. We've been asked to mobilize as many humans as we can, and let's create a love wave that is going to change history because the future is in our hands, and we have to. I like to say, and I know this is not original, I like to say that the best way to predict the future is to create it. So this would
very well said. I like that, actually.
Yeah, it's our attempt, not our attempt, but our definite intention to create the future, and our wave of consciousness is more powerful than any army on this planet. I'll tell you that.
First of all,
that's my announcement.
Yeah, that's a fantastic announcement. I'm actually going to plug the website into the chat. You said, say it again one more time. Woodstock dash
it's
or ET Woodstock.
etletstalk.com /. Then it's Woodstock dash ET dash contact.
Contact. Excellent. Now, there is one question in the chat that I'm going to ask you, but before I do, and this kind of actually has to do with this question, you mentioned earlier that we have to ask for them, right? They are not supposed to interfere with our evolution, with our lives. You said they stopped our nuclear weapons, and I would think so, because we don't know the extent of the damage that they incur because of our nuclear weapons, our detonations. Although people say that it affects not just this universe, but parallel universes and other star systems and galaxies. It's like a domino effect. That was one of the reasons why Stan Friedman always used to say, after they started coming, after we dropped the nukes in Japan, really, which, upped the game, he said it was like akin to like, the children found the matches. And
yes, yes, sadly.
And it's very, very true. All right, here is the question for you. And again, like I said, this is, you kind of already answered it, but just since it was copied and pasted twice, I want to, let me get back to it. Okay, this is from Melanie G33. Why do we have to accept them? Why not just show themselves?
That's a complex question, and one that I asked myself many times. And the thing is that I think for many years it hasn't been safe because the consciousness was not advanced enough on our planet of people wanting them, that if they were to show up and maybe some fraction of humanity was, or maybe most of humanity was not ready, that could cause more problems
they weren't ready
than it would
then.
solve. And I'm not wise enough to know what the number is. I mean, we're told now that the tipping point's been reached, and actually, this Woodstock of ET contact is our attempt to, or our intention to tell them, show yourselves. We are ready, and if enough of us can do that, then we may get a response in some fashion. I'm not predicting anything. I'm not in the business of prediction because I've seen too many come and go in my life. All I'm saying is that if we do nothing, well, then we can't complain and say nothing happened. We got to try something. Put out the positive intentions there, cooperate with them, and maybe they will show themselves in a way that they know will be acceptable to us. Keep in mind, humanity is quite a hodgepodge of different belief systems, different ranges of consciousness and all that. And I don't know how many of us need to come to a coherent whole of agreement before they will say, okay, now's the time, let's reveal ourselves. I'm not saying I know when that is, but I'm just saying we have to keep trying. Because if we don't keep trying, we're just going to blow ourselves to kingdom come. Well, actually, we won't do that, not with nuclear weapons, but other things may destroy us. I'm just saying let's put our best foot forward and tell them we're ready in a way that we've never done en masse before, and that's what you interviewing me is about, me putting the call out there and saying, let's show up, show your hearts, show that you're peaceful, show that you really want this. At this point, we have nothing to lose. Let's give that a try, and maybe they will show. So I don't know if that answered the question because it's a complex question, and I don't have the 50,000-foot picture that they must have. It's easy for us as people to look at the White House lawn and sit there and stare at it and go, okay, I'm waiting, show up, I'm ready. Yeah, you're ready, but what are all the other factors that weigh into this? What are all the parameters? I don't have that 50,000-foot level view to know what else is influencing the decision for them not to land on the White House lawn or in some other capital place, whatever.
Well, it's pretty easy. I mean, if they're coming from, up above, and they're coming down into space as opposed to coming through a wormhole, which if they're operating using gravity, then obviously things like force fields and Einstein-Rosen bridges become, available. Everything that we call science fiction is no longer science fiction at that point once we're able to do that. But if they're coming from the skies, right?
Mm-hmm.
How would they know where to land? It's like, okay, you see a big house, the White House, but at the same time there are even bigger houses, around the world. So it'd be like approaching, an anthill, right? Are you going to go to the Queen? No, you're just going to study who's ever near you.
Well, that's a good way to put it, an anthill, because the visual there is really funny. I'm seeing ants scurrying about everywhere, different sizes, different whatever, and I think of human beings, in that way. We're all going about our lives like busy ants. Some of us are looking in the sky, hoping and expecting for some help, and others are just trying to survive from day to day. That's half of humanity, by the way, who may not know where their next meal is coming from. So you can see the deplorable condition, much of it man-made, human-made, that our planet is in. So when these visitors are looking at the complex situation on our planet, again, I don't know all the factors that go into their decision-making process about when they're going to show themselves, how much they're going to show themselves, how they're going to do it, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just trusting that I've been told by my contacts, and nobody has to believe me. I would say to people, go out and make your own contact, and if it jives with what Costa's saying, that's great. And if it doesn't, well, believe your own reality instead. But what I've been told is they are ready, and we need to put the call out there that we are ready too. we're ready in peace. We got to turn this thing on its ear. Where the classic thing has been, where in a movie, let's say, where the star people show up, they land, and the first thing they say is, "We come in peace." Let's flip that on its ear, and we have to say to them, "Hey, we come in
We
peace."
are in peace, yeah. And you know how, Costa, you mentioned love, right? That is the key thing, because if you were somebody observing a planet and it was Earth, right? And you're seeing rival countries, with their battleships and fleets, in the oceans, and drones
Hmm.
flying above with Hellfire
Yep.
missiles and, F-18 Super Hornets, you'd be like, why would we go there? These people are
Yep.
killing each other. And the craziest thing is we didn't invent the damn weapons. We didn't invent the nuclear bomb. Somebody did, but the people who use these weapons don't take responsibility in the sense because they never were part of inventing it. And that, I think, is a big problem for us as in general for society. But it always comes down to, like you said, positive peace and being loving. That's what's going to attract them.
Absolutely true. It's the power of goodwill, and it starts between us. I mean, if we can't accept as humans someone of a different skin color or different religion or whatever, this sense of separation, if we can't accept that, how are we going to be ready to accept the humanoid species that are out there? Some of them do look like us. I'm told that some of them are not even distinguishable from us, and others may not look like us. If we're going to hate someone for the color of their skin as a human, how are we going to respond to someone who doesn't quite look human, but who has a human type consciousness that is spiritually evolved and full of love? I'll give you a story. You asked me how I got started in this, and
Hmm.
I'll circle back to that because it has relevance to what we were just saying. I had a really conventional upbringing in the Midwest in the 60s and 70s. And especially in the 60s, the big thing that was going on in my youth was the NASA program. It was the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, all this moonshot stuff and preparations for it just captivated the imagination of the world, and in a good way back then. And I was also interested in science fiction. I had a telescope and was out in my Indiana backyard just looking at the wonder of the heavens and just feeling just overcome with the immensity and the beauty of the universe that I would see through the telescope. So I was all about space back then, right? NASA, the telescope, science fiction. And so when I picked up my first UFO book, I think I was 10 or 11 in a drugstore, and it was produced and came out of the contactee movement of the 50s, before the big cover-up really put the hammer down
Yeah.
on UFOs. But it had a picture of a classic saucer with a dome on it, and lots of pictures inside that people who've been contacted told their stories and produced these pictures. And remember, this was before Photoshop and stuff. So for everyday people to fake some of this, I'm sure people did try, but there were lots of pictures, and it just captivated me. It looked real. The stories sounded credible, and I was smitten. I read as much as I could for a while, but you know what? Regular life kind of took over. I went to university. I got a
Hmm.
computer science degree and a math and minor. I came out to California from the Midwest. Got married. I worked in the Silicon Valley as an independent software consultant for nearly 40 years. Had children, got divorced, got remarried, and it wasn't until 2006 that I discovered a group that about 4 hours by distance by car would make contact with star people up in Mount Shasta in Northern California. And
Hey,
so I said
isn't
to my
that
wife,
real quick? Isn't that also where? Why am I blanking on his name? There's a ranch. He runs the ESETI group. Why am I blanking on his name? I know you know who I'm talking
"Oh,
about.
that's James Gilliland
Yeah,
up at
thank
ESETI
you.
Ranch."
Is
Yeah, yeah,
is that Mount
yeah.
Shasta?
No, that's he's up in Oregon,
Okay.
north and west of there. James, his ranch is very well known, and we've been up there, my wife and I, and we've done presentations. And a lot goes on up there near the mountain and on the ground and nearby. So it has a well-deserved reputation for being a magnetic place where star people and other dimensional beings do show up. But what I'm talking about is a different location, Mount Shasta, 14,000 feet high. Uh, it's huge and also has a really good reputation over the decades of being a very highly spiritual place and a place where a lot of sightings of UFOs happen. So I said to my wife, this is different. This group goes out and initiates contact. They don't sit around hoping it'll happen. I want to try this. Would you come with me? And she said, no, I don't want to. Listen, I support you because it's a huge universe, and I do believe that there is intelligent life and that they are visiting here, but I don't see what it has to do with my daily life. I've got businesses to run, got to make a living, and go and have a good time. Go ahead and have fun. I support you. So with those words, I went off and spent 6 nights underneath the stars, learning how to make contact with a group of people. And I would call my wife every morning and just talk to her about what I'd seen the night before, because this was all very new and very amazing. You know, lights zigzagging in the sky. You're flashing your light at them, they flash back, and on, orbs in the trees that I could see with my naked eyes. So much was happening, and I was so excited and was relaying all that to her. Along about the 4th morning, I think, just as I called her and wanted to start telling my stories about the night before, she stopped me and said, wait a minute, I've got something to tell you. And the first thought I had was, wow, what could be more exciting than what I saw last night? But go ahead. And she said, last night before, at our home back in the San Francisco Bay Area, she had just turned out the light. She was in bed and was just sliding down and getting comfortable with the pillow and getting ready to fall asleep. Now, you have to understand, my wife is a really talented clairvoyant, a psychic, and she sees internal pictures and does thousands of readings and is really good at it. And that's important because what she then saw in our bedroom was not with her psychic vision. Her eyes were wide open. It was with her physical eyes. And what I mean is that there at the foot of our bed in the dark, and she sees well in the dark, she saw 4, maybe 5 beings, because the 5th one might have looked like it was standing behind the first 4. But they were at the foot of our bed, 4 beings that were white, large heads. I think they had large eyes, but she really couldn't see the features that well. And she couldn't see the legs because they were behind where the edge of the bed was. So they weren't a projection of anything. They were physically there because they were being hidden. Their lower parts were being hidden by the physical bed. But they had thin necks, a thin torso, and thin arms. And they were standing there just looking at her apropos of nothing. And you have to understand, my wife, though she was a NASA geek like I was back in the day, she has no imagination in that way. She did not read science fiction and fantasy, didn't think about what life looked like on other planets, had no expectations of ever seeing anything, and so she was like a blank slate. But suddenly there she is, and apropos of nothing to her, they're sitting there looking at her, these 4, maybe 5 beings. She felt waves of love coming off of them. And she says that even though she was shocked at what was happening, so shocked that she couldn't say or think anything, she wasn't afraid. She says, how can you be afraid of that much love? It was just love enveloping her. And then she heard a voice in her mind, and it went just like this. Who are you? Who are you? They were asking her. And she couldn't think of what to say and just stared at them and eventually said to them, and today she says that she would ask a different question, but what she asked them then was, where are you from, with her mind. Today she would ask the question, how'd you get here? But when she asked them, where are you from, the thought came back in her mind, and the syllables formed in her mind very slowly, just in this way that I'm going to describe, which is Arcturus. Arcturus.
Huh. Where they're
And
from.
then where they're from, and then they looked at each other for a while. I don't think she asked them anything else, and then they just kind of faded away. They weren't there. And a lot of people might have been freaked out by that, but if you're my wife, who is a psychic and has, talks to her guides all the time that are not in bodies, and has seen people after they die every now and then, if you're her and you've experienced that, it's like, okay, I just had a cool experience. I'm a little bit tired. I'm going to get to sleep right now. She had a good night's sleep, So kudos to her for that. So she tells me this story, and after she tells me they said Arcturus, her question of me is, Costa, is that a place? Because she wasn't into astronomy, right? And she admits that she may have heard that word somewhere along the way in her life, and never paid attention to it. It was in her subconscious, and maybe it just came up. So she allows for the fact maybe that was accidental, but she really does believe that was what they said to her. And so my reply to her was, yeah, it's a place. It's a red supergiant. It's Astronomy 101. You learn about Arcturus, out there in the sky and how to locate it. So yeah, it's a place. And they told you they were from there. And one thing I do these days when I get a chance to do it publicly is I thank those Arcturians, because the next thing my wife said after telling me this whole story, and my jaw's like on the ground, because I had not expected to hear this. I'm the one having all the cool experiences, right? But she just one-upped that one. And she says, Costa, next year when you go to that place to make contact, I didn't see what it had to do. I didn't see what it had to do with my daily life. She said, I'm coming with you next year. It's personal now. And she's been with me every year since then as we've done expeditions and retreats and such. So that's why I want to thank the Arcturians, because they showed up, and we believe that they followed some kind of energetic link between me up there in Mount Shasta all the way back to her, because they can detect that. They probably looked at me and said, God, this guy's putting out a lot of energy in this direction. I wonder what's at the end of that. Okay, we're on vacation. Let's go check it out. And they showed up with her. So we believe there was some kind of a connection. And because of their presence with her, that changed her whole attitude. And it's like, it's personal now. I realize they're here, and I want to do more of this and get to know, like, what they're doing here, etc. So that's why I say thank you to them wherever they are. It made a personal difference in my life.
Let me ask you two things. First of all, your wife being psychic, after she started going with you to make contact, did her psychic abilities grow? Because I've heard that from several people.
I don't know that she says they grew at all, but that doesn't matter because her abilities are pretty good. She's clairaudient and clairvoyant, and the truth is about her abilities that coming on those retreats and even in our home base here where we make contact, where we live, her abilities allow her to have communication that maybe someone who's not as developed like myself doesn't have. So it really enhances everyone's experience. And that's why when people do things in a group, when they make the contact and they get in a group coherence, what's really cool is because each person in that group has a different set of psychic sensory awareness that comes easier to them, then when we do a debrief after our contact, one person like my wife will say, okay, during the meditation we just did, I got a message, and I could see some of them internally right here in the room with us. I just saw them. And someone else might say, well, I didn't so much see something, but I felt these waves of love in my heart, and my heart chakra just expanding. And someone else might say, my sore neck just got healed, or whatever. Every person has a different ability, a different mode that works best for them. And that's why doing it in a group is so cool, because I go back to the example of a jigsaw. Every person brings a little bit of jigsaw of that puzzle of information to this experience, and you kind of put it together and you get a fuller picture. of what just happened for all of you. And so my wife's psychic senses are always a real big boost wherever it is that we do contact. Someday, maybe if you get a chance to talk with her, you can ask her that question. Well, have they boosted your abilities? I've not heard her say that, but like I said, it doesn't matter because her abilities were just fine to begin with, and every time we go out, she's got something to add that the rest of us weren't able to perceive. So I'm grateful for that much.
The other thing is Mount Shasta. I recently saw a TED Talks, and I was blown away. Someone on TED talks about UFOs being real, but the 37th parallel has been something that's been talked about for a long time. Cattle mutilations, a lot of the military bases that craft seem to be going nearby, and just seems to be like an area that is either some natural ley line or whatever reason that seems to attract them. Is Mount Shasta in the 37th parallel?
I don't know much about that topic, so I won't say I'm an expert at all. I would have to. I know I could find out on Google Earth, but off the top of my head, I don't know. I guess it wouldn't surprise me, but the truth is, if it's not on the 37th parallel, I know I've been there often enough, and I've seen craft go in and out of that mountain, as have other people with me, many times, night and day.
Into the
So
mountain, you said, right?
there's something going on there,
Into the mountain, you said, right?
Yeah.
So almost as if they have a base there.
Some people say that the city of Telos. Some people say it's a fifth dimensional city. I can't verify that, but I have friends that have traveled there in their astral bodies and describe a base, yes, inside of Mount Shasta. I can't speak to that because I haven't had that experience myself. But again, I know people that have. I have, with my physical eyes, though, seen those lights just zipping towards the top of the mountain, and then there's nothing there. They go into it, or they just come zipping right out at a fast rate of speed. And you see a lot of times their lights, like up at the 13,000 foot level, where against sheer walls, just two or three of them just bopping around there and flashing in sequence at us, where no people are able to be up there at night. So that and many, many other stories like that occur up there. So again, you know something's going on, whether it's the 37th parallel
Or not,
or
yeah.
not. Yeah.
Let me ask you this too. How important is meditation when it comes to contact?
I think it helps. Meditation, of course, is it's goes from a person. It's a continuity. You can calm your mind and still it, and just work on one thought or a mantra, and just do that for a few minutes. Or you can, I guess, retire to a cave in Tibet and spend 40 hours in deep meditation. What I will say for contact is something that I alluded to or talked about at the beginning of the interview here. That what's really important is, yes, calm your mind, calm your heart, be still, and visualize being one with your group or with other groups across the planet that are doing this. And importantly, open your heart. That's the core of it. Open your heart, still the mind that's jumping around like a monkey and being skeptical of this and that. So you're doing a light meditation there. And I have to say that there are instructions on etletstalk.com, 7 steps for making contact. A lot of people will take those steps and they customize them anyway. Some people add music to make themselves relax. Some people like the drum. Humans being humans, they'll say, oh, I can do better than that. I want to add this or that and the other thing. And you can't stop people from doing that. What I have on the website there, on etletstalk.com, is a set of instructions that will work. And what I say to people is, if you're going to customize those and add something to enhance the experience and bring yourself to a higher loving vibration, well, that's good. But at least keep that attitude of that core of goodwill, open, loving heart, of invitation, of peace, of openness. That's at the core. And whatever you layer on top of that to make that better for you, bless you, that's great. That'll just enhance your vibration and maybe make you easier to find. I don't know. But if it helps you, then do that. So what I'm saying to people is you don't have to be an expert meditator. Some people can sit there for 45 minutes and do that. I'm good at about 15 minutes. I used to be better when I was younger, but I'll do that for 15 minutes in a group with my peeps, and that's fine. We make contact that way. If people want to spend longer or spend all day, some groups do that. Some groups are vegetarian. Some do this. Some do that. Again, the core was what's important. Love, goodwill.
Let me throw one thing into the mix too. You said when you meditate with your peeps, right? Meditation, we know the Maharishi effect is exponential. So one person, we're just going to make up numbers here. If one person meditates or prays, depending on what you want to call it, but meditation on one topic, right, it gives one, say, one piece of, power. Yet to do it, it's maybe equivalent of, say, 4 or 5. Say if 10 people do it, then you're talking maybe equivalent to 100. The more people that you have meditating on the same topic at the same time, the better the results.
Yeah.
There's
true.
There's a question here for you. This is Nicholas Cashmore, and I want to also thank you for his support as well. He is in Toronto. Costa, can you describe your first interaction?
Yes, I can. I just told a story about going away for the first time for those 6 nights and days at Mount Shasta. This was in 2006. And the experience, I had 2 experiences that week that literally changed the course of my life, so that I'm having this conversation with all of you. I simply did not think when I graduated from college I would be doing what I'm doing today. And it's a lot of fun. I'm glad it was a pleasant surprise. But 2 experiences during that week put me on this path, and one of them I just talked about that my wife was involved with, where she had actual visitations. That changed her life in that way. The other thing that happened did not involve her, but I was up there with a group of, I want to say 40, 50 people, and we would be out till midnight or after every night, and then once we were done with the contact, we had a good night every night. People would disperse, get in their cars, and drive back to their motels. One particular night, I want to say maybe it was the 3rd night of the 6th that we were out there, we finished with the meditation that evening, and most of the group did start dispersing and driving back, and I'd say about 10 of us just still hung back, still talking, and we were in a clearing that was surrounded by the forest in a secluded area that was at the foot of Mount Shasta. So we're sitting there talking, not yet leaving for the night, and someone tugs on my sleeve and points to my right, and I looked over, and maybe about 6 feet away, 8 feet away, certainly not more than that, I had to rub my eyes, because what I saw kind of coming into focus, into materialization, was what had to be maybe a 6-foot sphere. And again, I rubbed my eyes. Was it the leaves and the trees? Was it the shadows? But no, it was a sphere that was becoming more and more solid, and it was opaque, and it was just inches from the ground. And all of us stopped, and we were looking at it, and until finally, I won't say it was totally solid, like you could go and knock on it, but it was definitely there. It just came out of like the air, formed itself, like I said, a sphere, and for half an hour we looked at it. But what happened during that half hour was even more interesting. There was, let me just say, there was no environmental effect from it. Like I said, it floated a few inches above the ground, but there was no sound, nor vibration, no smells, no wind, no nothing else. It was just there. You couldn't see into it. But suddenly, one of the people from across our group said to the rest of us out loud, "I just got a message from the beings inside of this, and they tell me that they are scientists who are here on Earth researching the human energy field." And I thought to myself, wow, that's cool. That kind of makes sense. We're somebody's like PhD thesis, right? This is the field trip, the research, right? I can grok that. So that was interesting, and it got more interesting because standing next to me was a woman I'll call Gloria, who had become a friend of mine during the week and a very psychically gifted person. But here's Gloria, who was standing next to me, very vertical and stiff like a board, with her two arms held out at 90-degree angles from her body. The two hands, the arms were parallel to each other, but they were held out. I didn't know what was going on as I looked at her, and I didn't say anything because I figured, okay, she's having some kind of communication. Something's going on. I don't want to interrupt it, but I stood right next to her just in case she showed any signs of distress, that I would be close enough to help her. Well, I'll tell you, for that half hour, she didn't move. She was just standing there quietly, and I thought to myself, how's she holding her arms out like that? I can't do that for more than a couple minutes. But anyway, that's the way she was for half an hour. And at the end of that time, she just kind of became a little woozy and unsteady on her feet, and I realized something had changed. So I steadied her and asked her, kind of a question like, how many fingers am I holding up? What's your name? Do you know where you are? And she stammered out like, I'm okay, and she kind of got it back together. And I asked her, of course, what just happened? And by the way, right at that moment, that sphere started dissolving and was just fading into the background, and it was gone. So that happened, and then I asked her, what happened to you? And she said that a being from inside that small starship, whatever, scout ship, had approached her telepathically, psychically, and said to her, do you mind if I merge with you and study your energy system? And like, to her credit, how many people would be able to do this? She kind of said, she said yes. I think a lot of people would get freaked and said, get out of here. I'm out of here. And like I said, this is all going on silently while I was standing there. So she betrayed nothing, but this is what was going on with her. Anyway, she said yes, but I have 3 conditions. And again, what presence of mind that she would say yes and then draw up a contract and say, I have 3 conditions. Sign here, please. The first condition was that while this merging happened, that she was to remain conscious. She didn't want to be unaware of her surroundings. And the being, I don't know if it was, I don't want to say she or he, I'll just say it, because I don't know, said, okay, yes to that agreed to that, you stay conscious. The second requirement was that when she said, it's time for you to leave, to unmerge, demerge, I don't know, unmerge, then you go. And the being said, okay, I go. And the third request was, I don't want any messing with my sexual organs, no probes in anything or anything like that, and the being said, okay. So they did their experiment while we stood there, and then apparently when I saw her kind of getting wobbly on her feet, that was the point at which she told them, okay, I'm done now, please leave. And they did, and the ship dematerialized in front of us. So I'll tell you, right there, that violated all the laws of physics I had been taught, because I saw that thing materialize. I saw it float there. I even thought to myself, I'll go over and touch it, and then stopped myself, because my follow-on thought was, hey, Costa, you don't know what kind of energy you're dealing with here, And in fact, as it turns out, after that ship left us, 1 or 2 of the guys in our group who had been part of all this told us they had sunburns on their cheeks. They were red.
Ooh.
And this was midnight. And, like, there was no sun out. And they hadn't gone and touched it, but that was their reaction to its energy. So that kind of validated what Kosta and I had before, like, I may be 8 feet away, but I'm not going to get any closer and just let things go as they will. So that changed my life. That was my up close and personal encounter because, again, it violated all the laws of physics. And you know what? If it can happen once, then that proves it can happen. Then it can happen a million times. So my mind was open then, and my consciousness was expanded, and this was something nobody could take away from me. There's no government that can step in and say, no, nothing to see here. Move right along. You didn't see what you saw. That's BS. I and 9 other people, adults, experienced this, and the next thing I wanted was, I want to do this again. There were beings inside there. I want to talk to them. I want to get to know them. I want to teach people they can do this. I'm nobody special. I'm an everyday person who just had a very incredible experience. Other people can do this. So that sent me on the course of etletstalk.com. And speaking of the coherency, yeah, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, unless you finish your statement, because I was going to say there's 3 questions that are in chat for you.
Okay. No, and I wanted to circle back to what you said about the Maharishi effect. The Woodstock of ET contact that we're going to be doing is totally aligned with the premise of that, which is let's get as many human beings in coherency, focused on Area 51 with love, and then spreading that love wave out over the earth so that I don't know how many will show up, but I do know that the more that show up, what you talked about, an exponential effect, is going to happen. So that's why I'm encouraging people to join us on those days. So, yeah, go ahead with your questions then.
Okay, the first one is from Ward Alien. Can he call UFOs to appear? And I'm reading it word for word, meaning, can you summon them, as one word some people use, or can you, basically what he said, can you call them to appear?
Yes, but I won't say that I can call them on a dime and it'll happen, because there are many factors, I think, that go into whether they can show up or not. I don't claim to know all of those. But what I've been talking about during our time together here is the fact that I and anyone can call them to appear or to communicate in some way, even if it's not in the visible light spectrum. So the short answer is yes, but the longer explanation is it may not be right in the timing and in the way that you demand that it happens. So when you make that effort, alone or with a group, to make that contact, be aware, be hopeful, go out, keep looking. Very often, yes, it will happen within the time you and your group are out there. You'll see multiple experiences in the sky or on the ground. Sometimes you'll have a night where nothing happens, but then you'll go home and something anomalous happens in a dream, and they're talking to you in a dream. So do not confine, or I should say, I don't confine them by the lack of my imagination about how things can happen and when they should happen. So yes, be open, keep trying. Eventually, you'll get some kind of contact that's suited to what you're able to perceive and what you can handle. You know what? Some people could handle an ET materializing in front of them, like in a form. I know people like that. Other people would be afraid of that, but it would be okay for those people to see the light in the sky zipping around, and it's obviously under intelligent control, and they're okay with that. We've been in the field, for example, with a group where a craft really came down to the ground at midnight, and we could see the pulsing lights maybe about a quarter of a mile at the edge of a ridge, low, near the ground. And of course, most of the group was yelling and screaming, or not screaming, but enthusiastically saying, "Come on over, come on closer." But it didn't. It sat there and flashed at us for about half an hour and moved about, and we could see it, but it never came closer. And we found out later there was maybe 1 or 2 people in our group who secretly were afraid for it to
That's probably why they sense that fear.
Yeah, there you go. So we all got something. I'm not putting it down, and for people who have fear, I'm not putting that down either. I came from that too. Believe me, the first week I went out for 6 nights, it was with a mixture, a little bit of fear, because I had been programmed by Hollywood through all the science fiction movies I'd watched, but also of excitement of knowing that I can do this and that I wanted to have my own contact. So that didn't stop me, but maybe it did limit my experience because they could only come so close but no closer because didn't want to freak me or someone else out who was part of the group.
Okay, before I read the second question, I want to just give another shout out to Melanie G33 for your super chat. Thank you. And everybody who has super chatted, I really appreciate it because you guys are supporting us. This is from Frankie Zomboy. And don't worry, Nicholas Cashmore, I'm getting your question next. I'm just going in order. Was any contact made in the dreamlike state that abductees talk about?
Well, of course, contacts are made in dreamlike states. Sometimes that's the easiest way to reach people. Um, and I don't pretend to know for any particular person why a dreamlike state was used. Uh, but all these modes of contact, I think, are legitimate. There's a group called the Free Group that my friend Ray Hernandez, and I shout out to Ray and to his colleagues, who studied, I think, nearly 5,000 experiencers who experienced paranormal type things, not just, they call them the contact modalities, not just UFO experiences, but out of body, near death, and whatever. But as far as the what we call abductions, which is a word we do not like to use, uh, the people who have reported uh, going to a ship or something, mostly by a large majority came back with either a neutral or a positive after effect. So that turns the whole idea and the meme that's been out there that these abductions are all negative, they're all bad. It turns it on its ear because I think it was 86% of people who were quote unquote abducted in this survey, this scientific survey, said no, nothing like that happened. Now, I'm not saying there isn't a small percentage of something negative that happened to people. I don't have an explanation for everything. Some people will point to military, my lab experiments and stuff, and where they stage abductions like that. So that could account for some of it. But when 86% of the people say, well, it was neutral or positive, then you got to look at that statistic and stop using the meme of a negative abduction. I hope I answered the question at least. I kind of got off a little bit on that because it's the A word, the big abduction word.
Yeah, right.
We're using the word, yeah.
But Paola Harris, she doesn't like the A word, and when she holds her annual event, she doesn't want anyone that has to do with that. She wants positive contact only. That's why there are two camps, the contact or the abduction camp. Let me say this for everybody out there. First of all, Costa, I know I've kept you long over your time, and we still have another question, and then you let me know when you want to go. Anybody listening, if you want me to stay on and take calls with Tom Schaefer, also known as Tommy Shutter, Free People of the Cosmos, we absolutely will. So since it's a 60-second delay, please write that that's what you want to do. Otherwise, when we're done with Costa, we're going to wrap up the show. Okay, here we go, Costa. This is the Nicholas Cashmore question. The second one, but the first one was already asked. Okay, what species, if any, have you met? Have you seen their crafts?
I have met what I believe are Pleiadians. Had one of them show up in a circle of contact behind myself and my wife. Caught it on camera, and we know, or we believe that was Pleiadian because that's the communication we got. I've been close to a craft. Well, there was the one I was just told the story about. I don't know where they were from. The telepathic contact I get also points to people from Sirius, um, and a lot of people say they hear that they're in contact with Syrians and Pleiadians and Arcturians. So in my community, I often hear about those species. I don't claim to know the number that are out there from different places. People talk about a galactic federation. I believe in something like that because those societies. I mean, we organize ourselves in our human societies. Why wouldn't cosmic societies also organize themselves and work together in the same way? So they come from many places, and as I mentioned, I believe I've been in contact with Pleiadians and Syrians. And my wife obviously mentioned Arcturian. And I have to say, too, that just because someone tells you they're from a certain star system, there may be multiple planets on the star system. There may be multiple races. One star system could produce races that are self-serving, let's say, negative ET kind of thing. And yet the nearby planet or even another part of the same planet could have species that are more spiritually evolved. The universe is a big place, and we can't say for sure with certainty that we just know the answers to everything, who's out there, what they're doing. We only know by how they've treated us, and I can say with confidence that in my community, for the last 9 years, we've had overwhelmingly positive experiences. We've had people that have been healed, who've been contacted by Pleiadians and Syrians, as well as from other star systems too. So we go by what we've experienced, and when it's been good, then we can say with confidence that many of these species are here to help us, in fact.
This is always a fascinating thing, and I really hope that I'm able to s- to be either at your event. I don't know if I can make. I hope you do it annually. That's the best way to put it. Um, that would be great because I would love to go up north. I know from your area code exactly where you are too, and I would love for us to have the ability to be in a part of a group that makes contact since you've already have it down, and that's what's fantastic. I
Well, I can tell you, in your neighborhood, Joshua Tree will be there in October for a week, 6 days and nights in the desert there,
ooh.
making contact. So, and we do have experiences there. So, Dr. J, love to have you come on down. And anybody that's listening, if you want to bring your positive goodwill and openness and love to it, you're welcome at a retreat like that. People can go to etletstalk.com/retreats, and they can register there for the October 20th to 25th, 6 days and nights, and near Joshua Tree National Park in the desert this year, and join us there for contact.
Oh, I absolutely would love to, and that would be fantastic. And you know what? Joshua Tree is a very, very, and you know this already. That's probably why you chose the location. A very sacred ground. It's an, I think, I believe it's an old Indian, American Indian, Native American burial ground. But on top of that, they considered it very, very holy, and a lot of activity is there both for people who are looking for contact with non terrestrial beings or even ghosts, anything. It's all happening there. I don't want to say it's like the Skinwalker Ranch, only a large, 100 times bigger or that something like that. I don't even know what the dimensions are of the Skinwalker Ranch. The point is though, is Joshua Tree is one of the most, if you want to use the word holier places in Southern California to do these things.
Yes, the Joshua Tree National Park there is just beautiful and amazing. We have some land that's just outside of the park, there, private land where our group gathers and does their contact. Other groups will go into the park. I think you can go in there at night if you want, and it's really dark. That's what's cool. You see so much beautiful black sky. The Milky Way just stretches out there. And as you mentioned, it's sacred. Contact does happen, and I'm told there's three military bases even nearby. I don't remember the names of them, but despite that, and despite the fact we know that they're watching when we're out there and when other groups have been out there, you can see their drones circling and photographing and sometimes flying overhead, and you can see the military jets scrambling and chasing a light that you just saw zipping around. That all goes on too, so they're very aware and present. But our star friends, they find a way, and we do communicate with them, and increasingly so we will in the future.
Now, Costa, I have kept you longer than the initial 2 hours, not only because we started late, but because of the initial audio problems, which thankfully we fixed, and everybody's been able to not only listen but participate with the amazing questions. Is there anything you want to tell people before you go? Because the consensus is they want me to stay on for some calls after, which I'm going to. And by the way, I'm going to call you after the show to thank you when we're off.
Okay, and I will. I guess I'll be hanging up after that, and I'll wait for your call. Thank you, Dr. J.
Yeah.
Is there anything? I
Yeah.
would say
Your
please join our
website
community.
too, everything. Plug in everything.
Yeah, ET Let's Talk. ETLet'sTalk.com is the basic website. The membership is free. There's a map there where you can find people. Just mouse over it that might be nearby. There's a community there, and there's the People's Disclosure Movement there. We need more people to be part of it. It's all about humanity. We're becoming cosmic humanity. So ETLet'sTalk.com, and especially the Woodstock of ET contact. I'll mention it again. ETLet'sTalk.com/Woodstock-ET-contact or not hyphen, slash at the end there. That's coming up just in a few weeks. I really ask people's help to publicize that because nobody's making a profit off this. This is us serving the planet and trying to save our future by coming together as globally coherent human beings during those 3 days to send love out and to do it in partnership with the ETs who will be the star people who will be joining us there. So y'all come. Thank you much.
This is great, Costa, because this is service to others to the 100th or millionth degree if you're putting this on for free. And that's probably what is one of the huge factors that you are being contacted, because you mentioned earlier love, peace. These are things that key, very key. One of the greatest pieces of advice that surprisingly John Lear, said after all these years is live a life full of love, integrity, and be nice or be positive. Don't be hateful or anything negative to anyone else, because ultimately, if you are these positive things, if you are loving, if you are forgiving, everything like that, your life will be a more pleasant experience. Not to mention open up doors that are not otherwise known.
I couldn't have said that better myself. That's a beautiful philosophy and beautiful words from him. And yeah, right on.
Well, again, thank you so much, Costa. And like I said, I'll be talking to you very soon just to thank you again off air.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
All right.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Okay.
All right, friends. I hope you could still hear me okay. I did drop him and Tom because for whatever reason, I couldn't hold the group call. So I'm going to bring back Tom. And if you guys have any calls, now's the time. I wrote the call-in number. I'll say it out loud. It's 818-221-1902. Again, 818-221-1902. Let's see if we have any takers. In the meantime, I'm going to grab Free People of the Cosmos. Let's see if we can grab him in and hope it doesn't interfere with other calls. Uh-oh. I know you guys are hearing that background noise there, but can't really change that. He may be gone. That's all right. Well, listen, I'm leaving it up to you folks if anybody wants to call and say something. Wait, what do you know? We got Tom. Mr. Schaefer.
Yeah, man.
Welcome, and sorry for the delay. Thank you for fixing it. I figured,
man.
until someone calls me and you can chat. And I definitely, I'm glad I was able to keep him. Initially, he said an hour. We did start late, as always, on purpose to let some people fill in the chat. But we did not expect these damn technical issues again. I
Dude,
really
$80,
don't know what's happening.
$80. You got an $80 fucking super chat, dude.
Australian,
$80.
yeah. Hey, you're on air, just so you know, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Two-headed Tasmanian's great. Justin T's awesome. The Blue Crew's awesome. Melanie G33. Those are the three that were the super chatters today. That
That was
of course,
amazing.
my hat's off to them. Now, what you obviously heard the whole show. You were on the line. And by the way, remember, folks, if you want to talk to me and Tom, if you have anything to say, if you have your own story, now's the time to speak up before our 30 minutes wraps up. Tom, what did you think? What did you take away from the conversation with Costa?
Well, the guy's obviously very sincere and is really doing a big thing. I think this is the thing: is people need to do what he's doing.
And on top of that, he's very intelligent. He's not someone that's just I don't want to use any bad words for some people. But the point is he's a very intelligent and concise person in his intellect, the way he speaks, the way he presents himself, and
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
and the way I spoken to him, like I said, leading up to today, going back, years, but really it's been on the phone for the last few weeks. Initially, he was supposed to be on 2 weeks ago. Then I canceled that day, and then we set it for last week, and then he unfortunately had to cancel, so we moved it to today. But we got it done, and I got more than an hour from him.
Well, he's also been doing this a long time. This is not something that he just started. This is years that he's been doing this, I believe.
Yes. And I really love how he puts first doing it for free. That's a huge deal. Because, a lot of people want to charge money for access to events, to hear them speak, or to be a part of some group that meditates. As a matter of fact, Tom, you yourself, weren't you part of a CE5 group?
Well, the thing is, this is something that I've wanted to do, and it's just because of life interrupts, I haven't really been able to organize. I have what I would call, I have a stake in the ground that I want to do something. So I formed the foundation. I formed the 501(c). I created this project called Free People of the Cosmos in an attempt to at least put a stake in the ground that that's the direction I want to go. Now, it hasn't taken off like I thought it would or wanted to or whatever, but I'm not really worried about that because I think all things in good time are going to come together. Things are starting to coalesce a little bit differently sometimes than the way we think they will. And so I'm just I'm hopeful that the project still has some life, but then again, I'm also willing to say, okay, maybe it's time to move on to other things. But I think there's at least a stake in the ground along the same principles as what Costa was talking about.
Now, one thing that me and him also talked about To the Stars Academy, which he didn't get in today, is the fact that you heard him talk about ATIP, or I mentioned the word or the acronym ATIP, right? And it's coming from a fear-based idea. And if you were in the military for, however many years and then went off to serve in some intelligence agency, or even if you were in a private military contractor, the point is your brain, your thoughts would be wired to security. What is this? How can I control that?
Right. Well, this whole thing is it's very much like kind of like a ADT moment. Or have you ever been to a city hall meeting? When you go to a city hall meeting, there's a certain order and way in which things are spoken back and forth. It's very rigid. It's all about liability. The city doesn't want to be liable if they if a citizen speaks up and says the wrong thing. It's all handled in a kind of a rules of order. Everything's recorded. Every statement has kind of almost a legal weight behind it. can't just go in there and hang out with the mayor and just talk to the city council in a meeting. There's an order to the way things are done. And so people don't always understand that. And I think maybe there's something similar going on at this cosmic level. There's an order to the way things are done. There's a process and a procedure. And maybe we're just now starting to figure that out.
There's a question, Nicholas Cashmore. What is the end game for space people and us? What do you think? And then I'll say my thoughts on that.
I think it's positive if we want to be positive. The thing is, it's all about the collective consciousness. Which direction is the collective consciousness going? Are we leaning positive or are we leaning negative? I think there's a huge amount of negative energy going on around us, and we can tap into that and become part of it and feed into it, or we can try to feed into the positive energy. And I think it's important. And I think the star people, by their very nature, having evolved up from the kind of lower level that we're at, a lot of them, from what I'm reading and what I'm hearing, is they get it. They already understand their own civilization. Some of them have gone through similar stages. So I think that they're kind of waiting for us to grow up a little bit more. I think that's where it's going. And then we're going to be in a much better place. We're going to have a lot of things that would take us maybe another several hundred years to figure out. They're going to help us figure it out right away. And it's going to benefit mankind.
Well, I absolutely agree with you that they're waiting for us to grow up and mature, because the moment we start getting along and stop killing each other, stop conquering each other, think about it. They'd want to contain this on this planet, because if this is the way we're acting on this planet, what the hell is going to happen when we start going to other planets and start terraforming them? Are we going to start planetary wars with different races of us? You know, so I could see why they don't want to quite get involved in at the same time yet.
Yeah,
and
we're pretty
also,
infantile. Yeah.
We were talking about the soft disclosure that's happening. It's just a matter of time that our material sciences catch up to where theirs are. And things that we know as far as physics, our understanding of physics, will at some point change, especially, you know, as Bob Lazar described, element 115, you know, once they find the right isotope. And they could produce it in mass, which I don't know how it's going to be possible, considering they only produced 4 atoms. And he said it's going to take a lot more than that. Not to mention it was the wrong isotope. But once we get there, I mean, look, we already have partial AI. It's called iPhone or smartphone. You talk to it, it talks right back to you. You could ask it to play some music. You know, you could ask, it'll tell you which way the wind is blowing. It acts as a gyroscope. I mean, the next...
Oh, it's a tricorder, yeah. It's like a little tricorder. You can get medical applications. You can run microscopes. You can do all kinds of stuff from your smartphone.
And the next thing, which scares me, is integration. It's just going to be a matter of time before we're no longer holding these or they're in our pocket, but they're actually in us, whether it be a chip or something like that.
But see,
that scares me, though.
That's the thing that people have to make a choice. See, what I see happening in the realm of consciousness is that you wouldn't, if we actually explored and unlocked our conscious potential, you wouldn't need your smartphone, and you definitely wouldn't need spacecraft. You would be going there in an instant on your own, through your own divine power. You would not need spacecraft. And so the big transhumanist thing is, you know, integrate as much of this electronic stuff into the human body, ultimately replace the human body, put the consciousness into this super electronic android body, and become meshed with it somehow. That is such a grand cosmic aberration against nature. Nature already gave us, within our meat suit and this consciousness that we have, this meshing between consciousness, which takes us into the quantum, and the meat suit that we live in, nature already figured all that out. And we have said, well, we can't breathe underwater, therefore we're not even going to think about it. We can't do this and we can't do that. We don't realize the kind of superpowers that we have been given that have laid dormant. And I think as people begin to understand that, it just, to me, seems like nature's already been there for us.
You know,
power's already there.
This reminds me of a story that the great Roger Lear told me before he passed away. Very sad. It's been over 5 years, and We have to keep his memory alive. I was really hoping before he passed away, some other doctor would step up and continue his research. But to my knowledge, there hasn't been anybody that has performed any surgeries to remove these implants, at least that we know of, right? But here's the thing: is he told me that again, this is just a hypothesis, but I think it's great that the whole Tower of Babel story, where we were speaking with our tongues, chances are, this is his words again, is that we were telepathic. And we must have done something to upset the gods, meaning the ETs, and they removed that ability from us. When we spoke with our tongues for the first time, it might be literally that was the first time we were vocalizing something, where people couldn't communicate because before that they were
Right.
able to go into each other's minds.
It's quite possible. So much that we just don't know, and so much that has been sequestered away from us. But I think the more we understand the quantum link of the mind, the quantum consciousness that we can tap into, I think the more we begin to understand that, just have no idea how much bigger it is within us, rather than trying to say that, like I was saying earlier, this electronics that you're going to get meshed with super electronics and you're going to have a super android body is such a waste of what nature is already giving us. I think we just need to tap into what we've already been given. And I think that's something that ETs, for them, is something they do have. And they look at us kind of like we're retards. Kind of like, you guys need to switch on your telepathic stuff. You need to switch on. I think they're waiting for us to switch on a little bit more.
And also grow up. That's
Yes.
the biggest thing.
Well, from what I've heard, we can't switch on unless we do grow up. So I guess it's tied together.
What do you think it's going to take for us to come together? I know Ronald Reagan said it twice, once at a high school and another time at the UN, where he said, what if we were faced by an alien threat, an outside threat? Wouldn't we all put aside our petty differences? I'm paraphrasing here. I'm not,
Right.
use the word petty. But put our differences aside and come together for a common good. I would hate for us to have to do that only because of something bad happening. We shouldn't have to do that without something good happening. I mean,
Well, isn't it interesting that a lot of good things get weaponized against us? Like if we take some of the some of the Christian ideals, even some of the other Middle Eastern ideals about taking care of your neighbor, the Good Samaritan, these parables of taking in the traveler, of helping people, being kind to one another. All these different elements from all these different ancient religions is all common in everything the ETs talk about. So what if we take all of that and we apply it to our own political philosophies, our own religious philosophies, and we say, okay, how can I be kinder? How can I be more connected to my fellow man? Is it really so bad that I might campaign to help poor people? Is it so bad that somebody passed a law to help poor people? Is that really so bad that we decide to be a little kinder to our own species? So we just need to stop weaponizing the moment when we are able to help people. Instead of weaponizing it against them and saying, well, they don't deserve it, or they're takers, or this or that, we instead unweaponize it and say, listen, we need to help our fellow man. Instead of seeing limited resources, we say, yes, we have all we need. And we begin to create a little bit more open society that says, let's start taking care of the downtrodden. Let's start taking care of people. And people are going to get weaponized with words like socialism. They get weaponized with words that sound like, somebody's going to take away some rights. When in all actuality, what we're talking about doing is just being nicer to one another. Can we help some people with a little extra that might help them get along? Is there any way that we can be kinder and gentler as a species to our own kind? That's all I'm saying. And I think that will help elevate us.
Now, I'm sure you've seen a lot of the ISS feeds or other things that NASA's put out where crafts appear and they stop the feed. Did you know one of the code words that astronauts use on the backup secondary channel that we don't hear is Santa Claus? When they refer to a craft being, they refer to it as Santa Claus or one of the elves. So it's crazy because it, is it either happens so much. What's worse or what's crazier? The fact that it happens so much that we have a term for it, or the fact that it's happening at all? The fact that it's happening at all is the biggest thing, and at such a huge rate. We're not living in the Orson Welles War of the Worlds broadcast anymore. People are absolutely ready as far as emotions and things like that to handle a being that's intelligent, that doesn't look like us, things like that. I still believe that everything is based on technology. That's why they don't want to tell us. When I had Richard Doty on, he was in the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, and because of an ET event, which he couldn't go in detail about, that happened at Kirkland Air Force Base in New Mexico. What he said is that after that, him and 5 others, so 6 people total, were flown to Area 51, and there was a full bird colonel who briefed them into the ET program, and he saw 20 minutes of footage, and then they had an hour Q&A, and that's where I was able to confirm the Skinny Bob footage was real. The point is, though, before the interview and even during it, he said, I can answer questions about aliens, craft, etc., but I cannot answer questions about technology, especially about medical technology.
There's just a lot we just don't know. We've been so sequestered, you know? We've just, the thing that, I guess that's the thing is, you said people are not ready. I think people have been ready since the 50s. People are already exploring the entire concept of ET races in some of these older science fiction movies like Earth versus the Flying Saucers, and some of these other films, This Island Earth, and a lot of these 50s films. I think people were a little bit more ready then, but like you said earlier, the fear was being sown that it was an invasion or that they were evil, there's something disastrous was going to happen, you know?
I noticed here a while ago that Frankie Zomboy tried to get in. I don't know if I should just call without saying anything. I don't know why the call wouldn't have gone through, because I am hosting this weird shit, Tom. Why doesn't this ever make sense? It's like every day something new is going on.
Stuff's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Well, I think we just need to be, here's another thing people have weaponized. You were talking about unification. Well, isn't it interesting, the word New World Order got weaponized into a deep state conspiracy of some sort of cabal takeover, and we're all going to be under this dominating evil eye on this planet. But maybe there's an alternate New World Order that we can aspire to. And I think that's what the ETs keep alluding to, is they want us to aspire to a New World Order that makes a little more sense, is more humane, is more based on love and care, and less on the competitiveness, the economics of greed and wealth go away, and we start taking care of each other better.
I don't know. What do you think it's going to take for that to happen, though? Because
I think I hear people say, well, there's not going to be an ET intervention because they're waiting for us to kind of rise up on our own. And there is that thought, and it kind of makes sense. Okay, so a lot of the turmoil and turbulence and the political chaos and the political upset and upheaval and all this is what some would call catalyst for change. It's enough to make mankind miserable enough to say, stop, to get up and stop staring at their phones, to look up and start paying attention. That there's those that say this turbulent times is here to help transform mankind into a better mankind. But then again, it's also a very dangerous time, because in that time, we've got climate change stuff going on, crazy weather. We've got a lot of variables to survive beyond just waking up. You know, there's a lot going on with the political turbulence, especially. It's got people polarized. They are getting triggered and motivated to do different things. It's crazy.
It really is crazy, and the technology is growing so fast. You're because you're a tech expert. You know about Moore's law, right?
Right.
Has that ended? I mean, haven't we reached a point where it can no longer be valid because there's only so much space that we could fit transistors on a piece of silicon?
Well, I think it's never really going to stop. This astronomical growth, building upon previous growth, multiplied every time it multiplies upon multiples. So it's this astronomical growth. And see, I think it's not as much about concentrating in density into traditional integrated circuits. Now they're talking about different containers for circuits that are so out far beyond anything that's kind of being stamped out in factories right now, where they're talking about quantum circuits and they're doing molecular circuits and molecular motors and stuff on such a micro scale that it just boggles the mind what's going to happen. And a lot of this is also being used to create computers. So these computers have nothing on, or what they're capable of is light years beyond where we're at right now. And are we able to handle it? That's another thing. So a lot of this technology we come up with winds up, the unintended consequences. We don't think, we just leap,
Now, because of your technical background, you're definitely someone who can answer this. What the fuck is a quantum computer? I mean, like, explain it to me. I know a regular computer uses binary, so
I honestly cannot tell you how they work. All I do is know is that there's principles involved of quantum mechanics where they're doing things down with super cooled and superconductors and down on a level that is molecular, that is a different type of switching, is different type of architecture altogether than what you have on your desktop PC. What we have on our desktop PCs is antiquated, Bronze Age technology compared to quantum computing. It's a completely different approach, but it works down on this molecular quantum level, or below molecular, I guess. I'm not an expert at all on this, so I'm just kind of like grabbing at what little I understand about it. But it's this completely different architecture to the way things are done on a computer, and it supposedly provides a lot faster speed and a lot faster, a lot more computational power for the density of the device that's been built, if that makes any kind of sense.
well, and I know they're experimenting with obviously building that, and we don't even know if they already exist. I mean, if the mainstream media is telling us about it, then chances are that it's already there.
Well, look at what we saw. You and I both. I stumbled across that article about on a U.S. Army military website. They put a spoof article, or is it a spoof article? Remember that I showed you that about how soldiers were teleported from was it San Diego to Germany, and then it says, and we'll let you know what's happening next April Fool's Day. But the article up until the very last sentence has been written as if it was fact that it has been occurring. So yeah, there may be technology in place, and we may be getting told about it in plain sight with a big giant wink, as if it's an April Fool's Day spoof or an Onion-like spoof news article, yet when in fact it may actually be factual. That's a soft disclosure.
Now, I'm sure you heard about the problems with AI, right? First of
Right.
all, two of the guests I interviewed, one guest talked about in early phases of AI testing, what they found was that the computers were hiding information from the masters, meaning us. Then another guest spoke about during another testing of AI that the AI decided that the masters need to be eliminated because we are in the way. And then I guess they unplugged, the computers then.
Right.
This third part is something I just recently heard on the news. I don't know where this took place because there's several companies that are playing with AI. right now. But one of them said that the computers were communicating with each other and created their own language, so we couldn't
Right.
decipher it.
Well, I think people say, well, that's all academic. That was really cool. It was a cool Wired article, or remember that one of those, futurism articles. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool. But actually, you and I deal with a form of AI through this platform that has gone wrong many times, and that's Content ID. The Content ID system within YouTube is supposed to flag copyright issues, but how many times you and I both have had to deal with Content ID flagging stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with what they say it is. They'll say it's some song that's not even in your video. And you're like, what? And then you got to go through the shenanigans of dealing with what the AI has deemed a copyright violation, and it's not even true. It has nothing to do basis in reality.
Nicholas Cashmore wrote here a comment, AI and automation will take away jobs. That's a fucking fact.
That's already happening.
It's
That's already happening.
been happening, and
Yep.
when they really improve the self-driving cars, it's ironic. Gerald O'Donnell, the guy who runs the Academy for Remote Viewing and Remote Influencing, said that the reason Uber was started essentially was after the housing crash, 2007, 2008 era, the worst crash we've ever had, the worst recession. What they did essentially was find a way to get people to make some money with something they already owned, i.e., their cars. But where are they now? They're paying significantly less, and they are also testing out the automated cars or the self-driving cars. Now, I know there have been a few people that have died, in the crashes, and I know California at least banned Uber from using them, but it's around. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
Well, see, the window, I think, on the Uber thing and Lyft and all that, that's a window. How long is that going to last? It's only going to last a short term, a couple of years, maybe a couple more years, because as they roll out these fleets of automated vehicles, the automated vehicles are going to start to replace what people use, their day to day. So all that whole lifestyle change will occur because people no longer be owning vehicles and be like, why would I own a vehicle? It only costs me $150 a month to have a pass, and I can get a car to go to Walmart, I can get a car to go downtown, I can get a car to go to the bar. All I got to do is dial it up on an app, and the car is going to be here, and I get in the car and I go, and I don't even have to worry about being drunk or stoned. I can just party on the way and party on the way home. People no longer have to have the personal responsibility of driving. I think it's great. I think we'll all be better. It'll take all that road rage will be gone. People will begin to actually enjoy the ride, I think, with automated driving without people having to compete. The cars will all be moving along at an efficient pace. They'll get on and get off the road efficiently. They'll have their own manners and their own protocols, and it will be no longer in the hands of humans to torment each other on the highway. Of course, I'm sure regular cars will be around, but I think it'll become fewer and fewer.
Yeah, and it's really sad, and no, it's going to be a good thing if we don't have the traffic, but it's going to be sad that less people have an opportunity to work. Blue collar jobs at some point will no longer even be there. I mean, you already have Amazon testing, delivering with drones, right?
Yep.
When I was in Amsterdam, for instance, they had a restaurant that literally was a pure self-service. It was just each wall from, top to bottom was different shells, almost like mini ovens. And you would pay through there were, euros. You'd pay the amount what you wanted, and then you'd open it and pull it out. They only had one guy there preparing the food. That's it. And he could have left when he wanted to on break and come back and say, oh, well, we ran out of the fish and chips, or this, and then make more. But it's just really...
Well, all your big fast food now, you walk into a McDonald's and there's big, giant touch screens there for you to pick the food you want, and then you just walk up and you've already paid. Because the guy just hands it to you. You're done. So this also points up now, here getting back to some of the stuff I talked about earlier about being weaponized. Now this concept of basic income starts to make sense, because when you have a mass of people on a planet that's been deindustrialized and it's mainly service economies, and even that goes away due to automation. Now what are you going to do with this massive humanity? It's got nothing to do. They don't have jobs. So the economics begins to change. You're going to have to feed them and clothe them and take care of them and give them and keep this, quote, economy going. So this stuff like basic income starts to make sense, and it is probably going to come to that at some point. I don't know how soon, but it's going to come to that.
Now, let me bring this up because it's coming up. It's only, a month and a day away. Raid or storm Area 51. What do you say about that?
Well, I think it's humorous because, in fact, the more you look at it, there was a couple of videos out there that talked about how silly that is, about how far you'd have to go, and the fact is you might get past the first gate, but there's more gates, and it's going to become like a video game. There's going to be one guy left by the time it's done. If you're going to get captured. There's no possible way the people could do this. It's an incredibly harsh environment, and I just think it's probably going to become another Burning Man festival. It's going to be a big hoorah in the desert. But you know what it shows, though, is that there is a growing hunger to find out what's going on out there. Now, it is a bit misguided to think you're going to go storm the gates, because it's just, to me, it just doesn't make any sense. But I think what we're doing, what you're doing, that's the kind of stuff that has more impact, reaching a lot more people, having a discussion about a crazy topic of ufology and ET contact and everything else. But people, you and I both know this is one of the hottest topics on YouTube.
It is, and here's the thing: it started off as a joke. Even Facebook removed it for a day, and then they brought it back. But I know, even though Rachel, Nevada is really small, I mean like 60 some residents, but Las Vegas and everything too, Rachel, their hotel rooms are almost full, if not 100% full. I mean, I'm sure the $10,000 or $25,000 a night suites that people like Chris Angel were living in are maybe open, but the point, and they always keep a certain number of rooms open and available for their their high profile
conventions. Yeah.
That and their high rollers. But there's a lot of people that are going to be in Nevada that wouldn't be there if it wasn't for this storm area.
To me, it's just, you can't just say, hey, we're all heading down there. Well, I guess you can. I guess we're going. And now what? And so to me, it just seems it's just going to turn into a wonderful time will be had by all, getting drunk and stoned in the desert. Then they'll all go home and leave a bunch of trash for the people at Rachel, Nevada to pick up. Is probably what's going to happen. They'll leave their crap in the porta potties and everything else, and it'll just be a big trash mess. And then they'll all leave and talk about, yeah, man, we did it. Yeah, right. So I'm very cynical about all of it. I think it's kind of misguided, but it does point up the hunger that people have to know the truth.
That's true. That's absolutely right. Now, what other topics you want to cover before we end?
You blindsided me. No, I think you had a great guest. Costa was great, great guest, and it's good that he's doing what he's doing, and he's been doing it a long time. He's been doing it for at least 7 or 8 years, as far as I know, right?
Yes, he has.
And see, that he dovetails with what Greer does. So they're both talking the same game. They both have a little bit different sound of the way they say it, but I think it's valid. And I think this thing about the conflict people have about the ATIP thing coming from Tom DeLonge, et cetera, the chain of custody of Tom DeLonge's province with Luis Elizondo, all of that. I think in some ways, if there is a hidden hand of ET guidance going on, if there is a hidden hand of ET control happening, kind of keeping us in the lanes, just bumping us to keeping us on the right direction, just a bump here and there. Oh, you're going off track. There's a little bump. I think if there is a hidden hand, then it doesn't matter. They're using flawed vessels. They're using you and me. They're using Tom DeLonge. They're using the news media. They're using a lot of different means to get this message out. They're using science fiction. They're using, you've got several great science fiction shows on TV exploring all these concepts, not just technologically, but also in the human relations aspect to what's happening with ETs. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of messaging going on at a lot of different levels. And if there is a hidden hand, if they are trying to direct something, they're using every avenue possible.
The comments about Facebook, right? I encourage everyone, please use Minds, and I'm dropping here the referral link. Use that because that's a referral for me. Minds is basically a combination of Twitter, Facebook, and you could even say Instagram. It's open source. It's free of censorship, so you don't have to worry about any of that. And it pays you in cryptocurrency just to use it, whether you're posting about your family, your pet, whatever it be. And yes, it doesn't have the large base that Facebook has. But if you all recall, when President Trump hosted the social media summit, the only people to show up were the Minds people. The CEO, Bill Ottman, I think it is, and the COO. But Facebook wasn't there. Twitter wasn't there. Isn't Instagram owned by Google?
No, they're owned by Facebook.
Okay.
Instagram and WhatsApp both are owned by Facebook.
So
that's why I won't use either one of them.
That's why then they weren't there either. Because if Mark Zuckerberg didn't go, well, then why the hell would...
Yeah, but see, Minds is taking it on the chin too, though, John. Minds is kind of taking it that... I think what Minds is, it was a startup, and then they just recently got some investment or bought up. There's a big sale going on with them. So they leveraged up. And Minds has a lot of good features. I'm still trying to figure out whether I like Minds or not. I don't know. I've got several profiles for different projects on there, but I'm not real certain that it's. There's things they could do to kind of make it a little better, and I just kind of wait for it to get polished up a little better.
Yeah, and but at least though it's a better option. It is a better option. But and the biggest thing is Facebook. You have what is it? Something Britannica. You might know the proper word. Where they use Facebook to dig up dirt on you. Fusion GPS even use that. There's a company. Damn it! Something Britannic. I will probably remember it.
Something Analytics, you mean?
Yeah, Cambridge Analytics, right? Cambridge Analytics. There you go. Their whole company is based on what they can dig up from using...
Farming the data, yeah.
From Facebook.
Mining the data, pulling up all this stuff. And that's why there was a big push for the use of pseudonyms on Facebook. Facebook originally banned it and outlawed it within their own code. Then they figured out that there were people that actually were endangered by being forced to use real identity. So Facebook's got a lot of hubris and a lot of self-importance about their, quote, mission in life, which everybody needs to really... I think you're already preaching to the choir on this, but a lot of people do not realize the way they look down on the common person is just so much data and fodder.
Here's two questions. Again, I'm going to ask them to you first, and then I'll say my little piece here. Nicholas Cashmore, how about Google's blacklist to silence truth?
The thing is, this is what people don't realize. Other platforms have risen up to try to replace what Google does and what YouTube does, and the big engine that it is. And so it's all driven by advertising revenue. And so if we stopped clicking the ads or clicking the pages, or we stopped allowing Google to do what it does, then the faucets would dry up. So, and if we don't give them any accountability, if we just let them run loose like a monopoly, then it's on us. So I think it's important. We need to start looking at some ways to rein them in. They are monopolies. Google, YouTube, it's a monopoly.
And we know Google, the CEO, banned Alex Jones. He banned Roger Stone. Even though they don't agree with it, or Google as a whole don't agree with Republicans or anybody that they dislike, they should have the ability to block them and
Think about
remove
it.
them.
How hard is it to become the censor? If you really think about it, becoming the censor is it's got to be exhausting, because now you're determining what's being said, whether it's going to make it or not. That's just got to be exhausting to be the censor. And so they've really put it upon themselves to become a censor and determine what hate speech is and what this and that is, and what this kind of speech is, and all of these different elements. They've put themselves into this role of moderator when they should have taken themselves out immediately and just left it alone. I don't particularly agree with a lot of things that Alex Jones has to say. There's other organizations I don't like, but you know what? I always say, let the fools rage if they're harmless. The problem is that now it seems like with the reduction in critical thinking skills with people, a lot of people are being swayed by the likes of good speakers. People become swayed by the slick talkers, and by not having good critical thinking skills, they become a mass being manipulated by people. So maybe that's the fear of why they want to try to tamp down some of this hate speech. But I don't know. I think it's a slippery slope. When you get into controlling and censoring, you're getting into a slippery slope, and it's going to be exhausting trying to make it all fit your censorship model.
Okay, this is from Frankie Zomboy. Let me find it. So, back to Google. So they're like the NSA. I would have to say yes, and also if you really want to go into detail about that, everybody, go back and listen to the Bill Binney, the NSA whistleblower interview I recently did. I did a couple interviews with him, but the most recent one, we were talking about it, and they absolutely use Facebook as a way to track you. There's
That Edward Snowden movie showed that so well.
Yes, and the documentary Citizen4 was even
Yes,
better.
absolutely. They showed how that just all ties everybody and their uncle together. It's just one big mesh. You don't even realize how many people you're tied to. So, yeah, it's amazing.
Now, here's something else for you. This is from Melanie G33. What are your thoughts on Bohemian Grove and the rituals that go on by the elite?
Well, there's a lot of dots that seem to connect with what's going on there. But again, these turn into legends and fables without evidence. Now, there's some, I can hear Alex Jones saying, well, we've got the evidence. Well, I don't know. Do we? Do we really know what's going on? Or do we really know that that's part of the hidden hand that seems to be holding us down? Do we really know that for sure? Seems to be a lot of dots connecting in that direction. So I can't say. But it seems to be that there is this, what seems to be a harmless little summer camp, the way it's described by the people that have been there, that, oh, it's really no big deal. You guys are making a big deal out of nothing. Well, are they? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
The Bohemian Grove, I know Alex Jones was able to breach it as close as he can. And I know since then they've really ramped it up, and there's also the other group. It's named after a hotel in the Netherlands. I know you could think of it. Come on, Tom.
It's another
Maybe
group.
somebody out there will remember.
Basil?
Bilderbergers.
Right.
Very similar. In the Bilderbergers, from what I understand, is that aside from having presidents, prime ministers, kings and queens, whatever, all the elites, they are separated into groups and say, okay, you four are going to, discuss what's going to happen in the economy for the next year. You four are going to discuss where the war should be in the next year. They break them up in groups with people from different countries, and they literally plan out what is it, a couple hundred people at most, maybe even 500, but still, regardless, it's a very small number, and yet these pricks are the ones that are controlling us.
Are they?
Yeah, they choose exactly what we're going to do for the year.
Or do we do we start thinking outside that narrative? And the more it gets exposed, the more we rise up around it. We don't have to let that continue to be. This is part of the unification towards a better world order that is, more of a democracy or a humaneness or humanity based instead of a government controlling based or authoritarian based, but more of a what's the I can't think of the terminology I'm looking for, but instead of what we have now, something a little bit kinder and gentler, I think, is what we need. Something that the people have a voice in.
Yeah, well, what's it going to take for that?
I just think people finally got to get sick and tired. But see, I've often believed that maybe we're past a point where people are going to rise up that they're so numbed and they're so drugged, they're so medicated, they're so hypnotized by their phones that maybe we're past a point where we never did get the signal, that the signal never went off for people to rise up and say stop. So I think that maybe it will take an ET intervention, a wiser, older race that sees us for who we are and is here to help. Not condemn us or judge us, but says, okay, we're here to help. We got it. This is what we're going to do. And I think that would bring a sense of unity to the planet that we wouldn't get through some sort of this drip that we're getting right now. A bold, open ET, hello, we're here, would cause everybody to pause and stop in their tracks. We're talking mass sightings, big ships in the sky everywhere around the planet. Kind of like Independence Day, but in a more positive way, where you have mass sightings and you have an undeniable hello from our space community. That, I think, would get everybody's attention, and I think it would cause a whole new different perspective to begin to emerge, that even if they didn't touch down, but if they just made themselves so boldly aware to us that it was undeniable, that they're just sitting there, they're not going anywhere, and they're just sitting there, and people have to deal with it. It's in every news broadcast, and people begin to talk about what it is. I think that might be the kind of intervention we need to get everybody's minds off of what kind of material thing that they're going to be interested in, or what video game or what the latest phone or electronic gadget is, to look up and become aware that now we're not alone. We never have been.
Now, let me ask you one more topic and your thoughts about it. To the Stars Academy. I know we mentioned it earlier, but I want you to go more into detail. Do you think Tom DeLonge is fucking us all over? Do you think he's just uninformed? I mean, me and you talked about this.
Maybe he's the one that's being
right?
used.
Maybe
okay?
he's being used because in all 6 episodes, and I'm not trying to trash him in any way. I was growing up when he first when Blink 182, even though they were, the first album was more childish, I liked their music. I even went to a concert 20 years ago of theirs, right? It was a concert with them and a few other people. The point is he likes UFOs. That's his passion. And I'm like, hey, someone who has money and the star power to bring attention is great. But me and you talked about this. Even in his own series, he's very rarely shown or speaks, for that matter.
And it may be that to his own credit, that he allowed himself to be kind of backgrounded in the process, because he's not a good spokesman. He's a curious inquisitor like you and I are. He's really no different in that respect. He wanted answers. So he doesn't necessarily need to be the spokesman giving the answers. Maybe he's been the impetus and the kind of the push, using his celebrity to get some answers, and now they're coming. The big question is where the answers are coming from. Are those answers trustworthy? So he may be getting punked as much as the rest of us. Hopefully not. So if what came out in that series was, what the original release of information was, as you and I both know, as we heard about a UFO video being released, and there's a UFO. Then you go into the series that he does, and it turns out it's a whole fleet of UFOs that's running along the California coast down to Baja.
From the
goes
USS
underwater.
Nimitz case, that's right.
Yes. Okay, so this is bigger than just
Raining
a
UFOs. Raining
right.
was the term
I,
they used.
I highly recommend if you can download torrents of it or you can see it somewhere, if it's on Netflix or whatever. It doesn't really matter. I'm just saying, pay to see it, or however you can find
Well,
it
it's free. I think if
on
you're,
History Channel. Yeah.
yeah, if on
So
demand.
right, you can pull it down and watch it. It's definitely worth watching and very enlightening. And my impression was that it was well done. I didn't have a problem with it. I didn't feel like I was being conned. I actually felt as if Elizondo was doing the skeptic's job, and that is to not jump to the conclusion that it's ETs, but let's eliminate all the other possibilities. So really, I got to give him credit in that regard. It was eliminate the other possibilities. What could it be? Could it have been this? No. Could it have been that? No. Could it? Well, wait a minute. Now that doesn't. We don't have anything on that. And they eliminate through a process of elimination, and it doesn't come down to them saying anything about ETs until the very last episode. So that was, I think, well done. I have to give them credit from that regard.
Well said, Tom. We are almost approaching a 3-hour stream.
Jiminy Christmas.
So I'm gonna have to end. Any final words before I start giving out mine?
No, thanks for having me on for a few minutes. I appreciate
we'll
it. It's always
more
fun.
Often,
Absolutely. I'll just throw in a plug for Free People, thecosmos.org. And if you guys want to be a part of that, it's still kind of in a limbo state. Maybe there's somebody that finds themselves identifying with it, and you want to touch base with me. Maybe there's something we can expand on. So appreciate that, John.
Well, here is what I'm going to say. First of all, I want to give the shout outs to the super chatters of tonight. We have Two-Headed Tasmanian, Melanie G33, and of course Justin T and the Blue Crew. Thank you all for being my mods, Justin, Nancy, Starseed, Rockstar, and whoever else I'm not seeing right now, but you guys do phenomenal jobs. Also, I want to remind you all, I'm still looking for someone who knows things that how to access the deep web and can do a show about the deep web. I'd always love to do that. I'm always looking for that too. And so, especially if that person's in California, specifically in Southern California, even better. But wherever they are in the world, if you guys know of someone, please get them here. Remember, tomorrow's show is going to be very early. It's going to be 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, just because that's the only time I can get this guest. You'll find out who it is tomorrow, and I've already kind of told you who it is earlier on, what his title is at least. Also, remember, we always can use more social media help. There's a small team running this, and we also can use more tech support. Tom cannot do all of it by himself. So anybody who wants to volunteer, please reach out to us, and we will absolutely help. Absolutely be happy, and I'll do whatever it takes to give you a good recommendation for a resume if you're looking for a job, anything of the sorts, or if you just want to be part of the team like my moderators are. I appreciate them all. And again, friends and family, thank you for all the super chats, and please keep that up so we can get to that level so I can continue to do this without having to leave and disappear and practice law, which I don't really want to do, but I got that window open. Well, it's been open for a long time, but my moral character, which is basically a background check, I had to account for every single day of my life since I was 18. That's right, folks. Almost 22 years, every single day, whether it was out of country, whether it was in the hospital, you name it. I've had to account for it. And so you have to do it every 3 years, and there's only one part missing before I practice, and I really don't want to go there. This is where my passion lies, and I could tell from your amazing comments that you obviously want me here too. And for those of you who subscribe to the archives, we had a terrible webmasters before Tom came back, and we fixed those problems. So if you are still having issues accessing them, please contact me or Tom directly, and Also, for those of you who haven't signed up for them, go for it, because there are shows there that are exclusive to the archives, things that are not on YouTube. Not to mention, I will also do special things for those part of the archives. Same thing with Patreon. That's another way. And I want to do something when the more people go on Patreon, then I could do something where I can maybe host a show with just the Patreon members and be one huge party line. Now, one other thing to remind you of, a couple things. First of all, there's 32,000 people that follow me on Twitter and 64,000 approximately that follow me on Instagram. Yet, a handful, maybe 2 or 3 people retweet what I write in Twitter. Why the hell are people following me if no one's doing anything? So please, if I'm writing something about this show, please retweet it and like it. It looks pretty bad having 32,000 people following you and then no one retweets something, or sometimes 1 or 2. And remember, if you can't get a hold of me, because I rarely check my email, is use Twitter. Just tag me. Every time you use Twitter and you tag me, just know that it's me that's personally responding. That's the one account in social media that I personally handle myself. And remember, everything about this show is everything to find this show is the name of it, Dr. J Radio Live. That is DRJ Radio Live. If you're watching this right now on YouTube, as you all are, you could see all the links, even the Patreon one, which has a weird user question mark U equals all that. If you just swap that out for Dr. J Radio Live, then it'll fit. Everything is the same username. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Flickr, Tumblr, YouTube, of course, as you hear, DTube, DLive, which I haven't posted anything on there because they're not quite there yet, and Patreon, and Minds. Please do go to Minds. Use that referral link I sent you, and if you all want, I will drop you another referral link now. Now, also remember, friends, that disclosure is in your hands. Everything, basically, you are all going to have to be a part of it. We're not going to get it from the government. We're not going to get it from the mainstream media. It's going to take everybody to not be passive, but be proactive. Everybody here, right now that I see in chat, clearly is not only paying attention to this topic, but has a clear interest. A lot of people here have actual incidents, and a lot more, some people more larger incidents, plural, meaning that they're meeting with ETs, space people, star people, whatever you want to call them, on a more than not so often basis, on a almost regular basis. So please don't be passive researchers, everybody. Please be proactive. That's all I do ask from all of you. Now, the final thing I'm going to leave with you too is, I said this the other day. This is the mantra, a quote that I live by. I'm going to say it a few more times. Oh, Frankie Zomboy, yes, that's exactly how you spell it, just one word. And yes, there's the website, Justin. This is the mantra that I live by. It's a quote, it's a very famous quote by Teddy Roosevelt. It's about 100 years old. And it goes like this: far better it is to dare mighty things and to win glorious triumphs, although checkered by failure, than it is to take rank with those poor souls who neither suffer much nor enjoy much, because they live in the great twilight that knows neither victory nor defeat. Great quote. Dare mighty things. Be proactive. Keep your eyes in the sky. Keep your minds open. And share everything you can with everybody. With that being said, I want to thank you all again. And of course, I want to thank Tom and Costa, even though he's not on air anymore, for this amazing 3-hour show. And again, I'll see you tomorrow very early. All right. With that being said, we are signing off.